Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. We made it. I am doing the stream today. I know I missed streaming on my main channel yesterday, and I'm sorry about that. There's been some kerfuffles going on that I'm not going to expand upon right this second, but I will be expanding upon soon. But let's just say that there have been some kerfuffles lately that have occupied my time and my energy unnecessarily. But we are not going to allow that to stop us from happy hour. Now, happy hour is something we do on Fridays on my second channel, youtube.com/actively unwoke. Usually I'm streaming on Rockfin and Odyssey and Rumble as well, but I'm sorry guys, today I have been straight effing out all day. I didn't get a chance to set up the other streams. As you guys know, I'm a one-woman show, and so for just today, everyone is going to have to suck it up and come to YouTube. I know that some of you don't like YouTube, but it is just the way it is. And we're just gonna have to watch here just for today. I promise I will be doing the streaming on the other platforms when I actually am have enough bandwidth to have a life again. But guys, we have got a doozy of a presentation today. For those of you who are new to happy hour, what we do in happy hour is we watch a woke video from start to finish in its true form, and I drink some beer and we talk about it and we mock it and we make fun of it. And you're welcome to drink too, because it's 5 o'clock here on the East Coast. It's a happy hour somewhere. So I am giving you all permission. I'm blessing you all to grab your cocktail of choice. I have a couple of beers. We'll be talking about those in a second, and join us on this ride. But if you just want to do water, coffee, tea, something non-alcoholic, that's totally cool as well. Let us know what you're drinking in the chat, and please make sure you mount that like button for me. Well, I think it's going to be a doozy. Oh, my computer's already messing up. Oh, great. Hang on. I've got a doozy of a presentation today. Let me show you what we're going to be watching. Well, Brian works at midnight. Okay, Brian, I guess you're excused from drinking for right now. We are going to be watching a presentation that was just streamed a couple weeks ago called A Queer Endeavor, Inclusive K-12 Education. And let me just read the description for you real quick. Want to learn something about creating cultures that are affirming of gender and sexual diversity? These 2022 summit workshops bring attention to policy, climate, and social and cultural norms and practices. While our focus is on gender and sexual diversity, our commitments extend to issues of equity more broadly. Working towards liberation, we always love it when we see that word liberation show up, requires always looking through the intersectional lens and questioning how our practices reinforce harmful norms along lines of class, race, language, and other identifiers and their intersections. This session will focus on the K through 12 space, and will also touch on ways curriculum can be made more inclusive. So if you didn't have a drink prepared before, I'm just saying you might want to get one now. Just a suggestion. Let me show you a little bit more about this channel, though. This is a channel, this is the National Center for Women and Information Technology, a nonprofit community of nearly 1,500 universities, companies, and governmental organizations working to increase meaningful participation in computing. Well, how can we reasonably improve the participation of girls and women's in computing when we can't even define what a woman is? I'm just saying. And then I took a look at their website. Check this out. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but I do want to show you some of the organizations that this group partners with. It is a very spiffy website. I'm sure it's funded by George Soros. But let me just go down to the bottom here. Lifetime partners, Apple. Oh, Apple, Microsoft, Bank of America, Google, Intel, Merck, AT&T. They're investment partners, Pfizer. Bloomberg, HP, Meta, which of course we know is code word for Facebook, Amazon, Johnson & Johnson, Shopify. Lots of big name, very powerful, very connected globalist organizations investing in the content that we are about to watch. Nurtu says, Karlyn, I discovered libertarian communism last night. Just a reminder, libertarian communism is not a real thing. Libertarian socialism, also not a real thing. They're either communists or they're socialists. They are sure as shit not libertarian. I'm just saying. I just got back from the Libertarian National Convention. My throat is a little effed up because of convention cruds, but I'm reasonably certain that I've gotten a deep dive into what actually is libertarianism, and it's not communism. I'm sorry, not a real thing. But we're not going to have that argument today. So that's what we're watching, guys. Is everyone excited to learn more about queer inclusivity in K through 12 education? I know I am. But before we get into that, couple brief notes. Of course, if you want to support the work that I'm doing in making sure that sunlight is shown on all of this woke nonsense, I would love it if you would become a member of my locals community. Listen, guys, I'm going to be honest. Listen, like, times are tough. I just got back from filling up a tank of gas, and I drive a car that doesn't have a very big tank of gas, has about 10 gallons, and it cost me about $50. So I understand that times are tight. I understand that inflation is wreaking havoc on a lot of people. I will say that I need your support to be able to keep doing this, though. I'm just going to graciously ask, listen, man, American Airlines effed me out of $2,000 in the past week. If you've been thinking about joining my channel and supporting the work I do, there is no greater time that I need your support than right now. And there's lots of stuff going on in the background that I can't talk about right now. But they're like, if you've been thinking about it, now's the time, because if I don't get a certain amount of support, to be really honest, I'm going to have to stop streaming so much, and I'm going to have to stop doing so much content, because it really, really does take up a lot of time in my day. And I understand, like, every time I get a cancellation from locals, I'll tell you the note is always the same. Karlyn, I love your work. I want to support it. Inflation is killing me. So if you have been thinking about supporting the work I'm doing, now is the very best time to do it, because if people don't want to support the work I'm doing, I'm just going to be honest, guys, I'm going to have to stop doing it. I don't want to do that. I don't think you want that to happen, but that's just the reality of the world, because I have a mortgage to pay. And so if you want to keep me doing these streaming on my main channel almost every single day of the week, providing content and clips and stuff like that, if you enjoy the work I do, if it provides value to your life, if I've taught you anything about critical race theory or woke insanity, now's the time to step up. Otherwise, that content ain't going to get made anymore. And I'm just going to be very, very honest about that. This stuff does not pay the bills as much as people think it does. So if you would like to support the work I'm doing, the best place you can start is by becoming a member of my locals community. You can join for $5 a month or more if you feel so inclined. You can also join for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift. All of these amounts are adjustable. So if you say, Karlyn, I really love your work and I want to give you $100 a year, dude, you can do that. And I will thank you for it and be very, very appreciative. You can do that by heading over to kb.locals.com/support and joining up today. Another thing you can do is make sure you have purchased a copy of my book, Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. And now is going to be a really great day to do that, because starting tomorrow, if we go over to the Unwoke events section, starting tomorrow, and the people who are signed up for this will be getting an email invitation after the stream today. And I apologize it hasn't gone out so far, but again, it's been a little bit of a day, been a little bit of a couple days, if I'm really honest about it. But if you would like to purchase your book today, or if you've already purchased your book, we are going to be starting book club tomorrow. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. is the very first meeting of the Actively Unwoke Book Club, where we're going to be discussing the first part of the book. The book is split into 3 parts. In the first section, I decode the woke ideology in the most plain and simple English that I can possibly decode it in. In the second part, we talk about case studies and practical, actionable strategies for fighting back. And in the last part, we talk about maintaining your sanity, maintaining your mental health, taking care of yourself when you're fighting back the woke, because you do not need to know how to be able to do that in order to be able to go the long haul. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about decoding the woke. We're going to be doing that at 3 p.m. And the only way you can get access to this book club is by sending your receipt of your purchased book to bookclub@activelyunwoke.com, and I'm going to be sending out an email. So if you haven't done that yet, You're going to want to do this during the course of this stream, because after the stream today, I'm going to be sending out an email invitation with a Zoom link that is only going to be available to people who have sent their receipt in to bookclub@activelyunwoke.com. So I think I've emailed back everyone that's sent in their receipts so far and confirmed. If I sometimes I may not have emailed you back, but I think I emailed most everyone. If I didn't, just look for an email invite later today. If you have not gotten that email invite by a little bit later today after the stream, of course, please just reach out and let me know you haven't gotten it, and I will double check and make sure. But I really want everyone who wants to be involved in the book club can join. This was originally going to be a book club that was only available to people who pre-order the book. I changed that because there were like shipping delays and all sorts of nonsense with the audiobook, and that's a whole other story. But I am making it available to everyone who purchased the book at any time, and you're welcome to come and have a private chat with us tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time. This is unrecorded. It's not going to be available anywhere else. And I'm really looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be great. Oh, King Peter of the chat. Thank you, Peter. Peter says plain and simple language, aka the opposite of everything James does. Now, listen, I'm not going to take anything away from James Lindsay. I think James Lindsay is a god. I literally wrote a whole chapter in the book about how great I think James Lindsay is and how I think that everyone should try to be like him. So I'm not taking anything away from him, but James does get, on occasion, every day, a little verbose. Just a little bit. Just a little. And he's actually very well aware of that. And actually, before I even started writing the book, Deborah, I've got you. I know I've seen you on the list. I've got you. Don't worry about it. But even before I started writing the book, I actually reached out to James and I said, "Have you ever thought about doing something in like really plain, like really simple English?" And he said to me, he's like, "No, because I'm waiting for someone else to do that." So James Lindsay is really focused on the academic part of CRT. And I told him probably a year and a half ago, "Okay, James, I'm going to try to take the part where we take your academic speak and I'm going to translate it for everyday average people." And he blessed it. He did. He blessed it. So I am not trying to compete with James Lindsay. I think James Lindsay is the very best in the world at what he does. I just also think that sometimes people need it explained a little bit more simply, and he agrees on that. And that's exactly what I tried to do in the book. And so I hope that that comes through. And thank you, Peter, for that super chat. All right, guys, let's dig into it. We got a couple things we need to do. Now, I don't know if we're going to be doing much with bingo today, but I will put bingo in the chat just for everyone. I don't know how bingo relevant our video is going to be today, just because it's not about race, it's about gender. But who knows? We might still be doing some bingo stuff. But really what we need to do is I need a beer. I can't even tell you guys how much I need a beer. I cannot even. Now, what we do in the on happy hours is that I actually, and this is because of Patrice. Patrice is the queen of the poll in the chat. I am going to tell you guys about the 3 beers that I have just purchased at the specialty beer store, and I'm going to put a poll in the chat, and we are going to ask you guys which beer you would like me to start off with. Which beer first? Okay, let me show you. Now this is a sour type of day. I don't know what it is with the craft beer stores lately, but it's like sours and IPAs, and that's it. I really want stouts to come back. But we have sours today. And let me show you. Let me see. Let's start with this one. This one, now, some of you guys know I love cruising. I love the cheesiness of a Caribbean cruise like no one's business. I am desperate to go on a cruise like I've never been desperate to go on a cruise in my effing life. Can't do that right now, but someday I will be able to go on a cruise again. And one of the things that I love to do on cruises are pretty much the only time where I will drink the cheesiest rum cocktails that have ever been created. And one of those cocktails is a pina colada. I am a big fan of pina coladas, but only on cruises. I will not drink a pina colada when I'm not on a cruise, but I enjoy the hell out of them when I'm in the Caribbean and kicking back and and doing cheesy shore excursions and things like that. So when I saw this beer, I had to get it. It is called I Just Want to Be Puree, and this is a pina colada smoothie sour. Pina colada beer. Now, you guys know Murphy's Pool is especially offended by my cheesecake beer. They haven't restocked the cheesecake beer at the specialty beer store yet, but I am convinced that Murphy's Pool will also be equally offended at the pina colada beer I have right now as our option number 1. Option number 2 is, I think I may have had this before, but I don't remember. It's a raspberry sour. Just a basic raspberry sour. You know, I like raspberry. Sours are okay, but I really like raspberry. So we're going to put that one as number 2, raspberry. And our third option, let's see. This one also has a coconut theme. This is I don't even know what to expect with this. Lono, it's a tiki inspired nitro sour. And what they've got on the side is they've got pictures of a pineapple, a coconut, and an orange. And so what it says, they actually gave directions in this. They gave directions on how to pour it perfectly. And this is brewed, it's brewed with pineapple, coconut, orange, and lactose. This is a 9% beer that apparently will make me feel like I should be holding a tiki torch of some sort. So we're going to put the tiki beer as last. And I'm going to put that into the community. You guys have got the poll. Let me know what beer I should start off with. Should I start off with pina colada sour? Should I start off with raspberry sour? Or should I start off with tiki beer? Tiki torch beer. God, I don't even want to know which one you go. You guys, of course, are going to pick the 9%. Of course you are. Okay, well, I'm going to let that poll run for a minute. In the meantime, guys, please mount that like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not already. For those of you who might be new to the channel, I also do a podcast on this channel where it's just audio only, me talking about some issues. You can subscribe to it's called Actively Unwoke, aptly. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple, on Spotify, on Google. I'm hoping to get it on some other platforms soon, but we are on the main platforms right now. And it is called, actually, let me pull it up while you guys are voting on beer, because, you know, beer has got to be the most important thing. But let me just pull up real quick. Apple Podcasts. And I'll show you. Let's see. There it is. So it's called Actively Unwoke, and it's just a regular podcast where it's about 20 minutes of me talking about whatever subject I want to talk about. I just posted a new episode yesterday called Why the Public Schools Cannot Be Saved. I've got some episodes about maintaining your sanity. I've got episodes about knowing your values. I've got if you want to hear the introduction to Actively Unwoke, that's actually the very first episode. And guys, to be honest, I could really use some help with the ratings. Because here's the thing, when you do unwoke stuff, you always have to contend with losers on the internet who will just 1-star everything you do. So if you have been listening to the Actively Unwoke podcast, if you have been enjoying it, please give it a rating on Apple Podcasts. Please leave a review, because what we need to do is counterbalance the 1-star reviews that I inevitably get from people who don't even bother to listen to my work and are just being completely intellectually dishonest. But I really want to get this rating up. I know I haven't been talking a lot about the podcast, but for some reason, it's actually been getting like 300 or 400 views a day, listens a day, even though I don't even really promote it at all. So it's actually doing just fine, but I would like to get those ratings up, and if you could help me out with a 5-star review, I really appreciate it. All right, we are ending the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And of course, the Tiki Torch beer won. You guys are starting me off with a 9% beer. You know what? That's all right. It's all right. I'll go with it. Hang on. I have to follow the instructions on how to pour it, though. 1 second. Okay, I have my wine glass because I drink beer. Hang on. We'll get this down. I drink my beer out of a wine glass because I'm fancy like that. I own my big wine glass today because Victor didn't do the dishes. Not that I tell my husband to do the dishes. I promise I don't, but he just didn't. I was traveling. Okay? All right, so the instructions for pouring are I have to shake it twice. Okay, it's shook. I'm scared to open this now, but okay. I have to open it. I have to invert and pour quickly into the glass. And then I have to allow the beer to cascade and settle. All right, let's pour this beer. I'm going to do it for you guys so you can see I'm really... Let me not open that next to my computer. Let me open that on the other side. Oh, okay. It didn't spray everywhere, so that's a good start. Okay. Now I have to invert. Oh no, will this glass be big enough for the beer? Will it be big enough? I hope it is. It's gonna be close. That looks very light and nice. I wasn't actually expecting that. Okay, that looks really nice. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, this is exactly what's going on. Brent said, had to punish me with the tiki beer for missing so many episodes. Listen, man, I was busy taking over the Libertarian Party, okay? Okay, maybe not just me, 1,000 other people too. I think the tiki beer is going to be fun. Cheers, everyone. Happy Friday. We made it through another week. That actually, definitely sour. It tastes like a punch. It definitely tastes like a punch. I'm not mad at this. This does not taste like 9%, though. I'll tell you that right now. This absolutely does not taste like a 9% beer. It tastes like a delightful rum punch. All right, guys, let's dig into our episode. Let me just bring it up. Got to bring it up in the other screen, of course. No one's dying of alcohol poisoning today, John Morgan. You don't have to worry about that. All right. Who's ready to get this party started? Let's go. Let's learn about queer inclusivity in K-12 education.
Welcome back to the 2022 NC WIT Virtual Summit on Women in IT, which continues to be the world's largest annual convening of change leaders focused on significantly improving diversity.
That's exactly what this is, Peter.
My name
is
John
exactly
Kelly,
what this
and I'm a
is.
Senior Regional Affiliate Manager for NC WIT.
You got your zombie after all.
Program, which supports a quickly growing tech community of over 22,000 women, genderqueer, and non-binary technologists, all the way throughout their tech journey through high school, into college, and into the workforce.
22,000 people this organization serves. Okay.
To welcome you to this series, which highlights speakers with a diverse range of perspectives and hopefully provocative ideas and worldviews. We wouldn't be here today without our sponsors, so we would like to thank them for making this event possible. And I'd also like to thank you, the viewing audience, in advance for your patience should we experience any bandwidth or technical issues. This will be an interactive session today, so please feel free to post your thoughts, your questions, your perspectives into the chat throughout the session. Please also feel free to use the Q&A feature if you have any technical issues throughout this process. You may also have the opportunity to ask your questions live, but please remember to keep your microphone off unless you are speaking. And today I have the sacred honor of introducing some of my professional and personal heroes, Dr. Bethany Lenardi and Dr. Sarah Stately, co-founders of A Queer Endeavor, which aims towards creating schools that are safer and more affirming of LGBTQ+ and gender-expansive youth. A Queer Endeavor seeks partnerships with educators and school communities to make unworkable the silence that historically has surrounded topics of gender and sexuality diversity in education. The Queer Endeavor seeks to grow the knowledge base on gender and sexual diversity affirming policies and practices in education, inform research, and engage in broad-based coalition building with a variety of community-based stakeholders. Dr. Bethany Lenardi. Bethy was born and raised in New Orleans, and she has a hard time not talking about it. She loves to dance with her 3-year-old, hike, laugh, eat delicious food. Mostly, though, she loves to feed people. Over the past few years, she's worked to refine her skills on the big green egg, and she also makes purple kimchi that's pretty darn good. She calls it Prince.
Purple kimchi.
Bethy identifies first and foremost as a teacher. Before earning her PhD, Bethy spent 16 years as a secondary English and math teacher in Louisiana, California, and Colorado, and not a day goes by that she doesn't miss that job. Bethy is a co-founder and co-director of A Queer Endeavor and an assistant professor in educational foundations.
Oh, assistant professor. Oh, good.
Bethy's work explores how public schools as compulsory institutions affirm, include, or deny or silence queer identities. Specifically, she's interested in how educators enact promising practices that disrupt and heal this heteronormative school ecologies to create schools that are ready and not merely reactive to queer youth. A way to understanding school ecologies is through a focus on the relationship between both policy and practice, and at the level of implementation. Specifically, Bethy is interested in policies that challenge the status quo. That is, what counts as normal in public schools. She works to understand how those policies might land in local ecologies, and how educators might till the soil so that they land safely and have positive impacts. And Dr. Sarah Stately.
Did that just sound like blood and soil to anyone else? He said till the soil, but honestly, the first thing that popped into my head was like the idiots at the Charlottesville march where they were like, blood and soil, blood and soil. This guy basically just said the same thing, but on the left. I swear to God, the extreme left and the extreme right are always and universally two sides of the same effing coin. They use the same language every time.
Sarah is an assistant professor in the Teaching, Learning, Research, and Practice in the School of Education, and also a co-founder and co-director of A Queer Endeavor. After earning her undergraduate degree and a teacher licensure from the University of Kansas, Sarah spent 6 years as a language arts teacher, primarily in Southern California. Her classroom teaching experience fueled curiosities about why teaching is such a difficult profession to learn. In 2008, she moved to Boulder, Colorado in pursuit of a PhD. Her research and community-based work are animated by deep commitments to justice-oriented teacher education and to creating a safer, more humanizing school cultures for LGBTQ+ youth, families, and staff. Currently, she studies how educators learn and enact queer, inclusive, and anti-oppressive practices. Things that make Sarah happy include compassion, when national leaders act with integrity and humanity.
When someone asks me what makes me happy, you know what I generally say? Compassion, world peace, when leaders act with humanity. These things make me very happy. Come on, dude. Come on.
The rolling plains.
These people don't even try to be real people. They just like they are literally pod people with no authenticity whatsoever.
Kansas, deep belly lass, and her 3-year-old. So, with great pride, I welcome both Sarah and Bethy to the stage.
Thank you.
Thanks. I guess I should start with saying that the after party will be me answering questions about the big green eggs. So if anybody wants to stick around for that, I'm happy to share my knowledge and expertise. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, and we'll just remind you one more time, if you haven't yet accepted the panelist invite, please do so, because as John said, this will be an interactive session, and we would really appreciate being able to see and discuss with you. So accept that invite. Okay, Bethy's going to share her screen with the slides, and then when we engage in that discussion piece, we'll stop sharing so that we can.
Hang on. Sam says, I bet their social credit score is super, super high. Well, that should be a goal of all of ours, Sam, is to make our social credit score as high as possible. I know that's my one and only goal in life. And as an aside, I'm gonna go watch some Black Mirror after the stream is done today.
See your faces, hopefully. But again, I'm Sarah Staley. My pronouns are she, her, and hers.
And I'm Bethy Leonardi, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
And we are teacher educators and researchers.
Everyone put their pronouns in the chat
at the University of Colorado Boulder.
if you feel so inclined.
We started A Queer Endeavor in 2014. We are an organization that works in partnership with districts and school communities to support educator learning around gender, sexual, and family diversity. And really, our goal is to work together to create learning environments in which LGBTQ+ youth, families, and staff can thrive. Before starting that work at the university level, Bethy and I were both classroom teachers.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Middle and high school teaching experience between the two of us. And we like to say that because we do identify first and foremost as teachers. And we have just a tremendous amount of respect for what y'all do day in and day out to show up for young people.
Okay. All right. So we want to begin by following the lead.
Even money, this
amazing
person's
scholar
trans.
who we draw on quite a bit, Kevin Kumashiro. When he speaks, he often starts with a practice that he calls naming the moment. And it feels important to name that as we gather this afternoon in this remote learning space, that COVID-19 continues to impact our daily lives in pretty significant ways. And especially
hang on. COVID-19 continues to impact our lives. This was literally streamed 2 effing weeks ago. This was not streamed in 2020. This was not streamed in 2021. This was streamed 2 weeks ago. And these people are still virtue signaling about COVID. And I say that as someone who literally just came back from what can probably be defined as a super spreader event. Okay, yeah, COVID did get spread at the Libertarian National Convention. It's true. I don't think I got COVID because I had COVID a couple months ago. So in theory, I should be immune to it. I think other people, I actually haven't talked to anyone who's gotten sick that actually tested positive for COVID, and people have been taking tests. But I know that people did test positive for COVID. I think I just have a cold. But I'm just saying that we are not in the midst of the pandemic anymore. And thank you everyone who's following the podcast and giving it 5-star reviews. I really do appreciate it. It really does help. And I just appreciate the moments that you took to do that. And I'm releasing episodes of the podcast pretty decently regularly because they're only 20 minutes long. And I'm really actually very happy with the quality so far. It's a lot different than my videos. And I hope you guys like it.
Us in education. There are so many emotions tangled up in that, emotions that you might be feeling right now, pandemic fatigue, anxiety, mental and emotional stress. We know that the toll that this pandemic has taken on educators, and we just want to name that. And we also want to acknowledge the community in Buffalo, New York, and the impact of yet another heinous act of racist violence that somehow comes as it's not as a surprise. And we just want to acknowledge that.
Wasn't that guy basically a white supremacist on the left?
Right,
hang on.
Along with that, 1/3 of US states have taken.
Wasn't the guy in Buffalo basically like a left-leaning white supremacist? He was a leftist, but am I wrong about that? Just saying.
An action to restrict teaching LGBTQ plus topics, anti-racist or anti-critical race theory initiatives are pervasive, and under the guise of parental rights of trans youth are actually under attack right now. And mirroring those national trends here in Colorado, we're seeing local communities and schools faced with similar challenges around toxic contexts in the form of school board meetings and community disagreements about the goals of public schools. And so there's a lot.
Wait, did she just say there's
this moment? And with all that in mind,
did she just say that there's disagreement about the goals of public schools? I want more enumeration on what she believes the goals of the public schools are. I want to know more about that. Hopefully she gets into it. This is going to be, I can already tell. Just like everyone needs to hunker down because I can already tell this is going to be like one for the books based on how they're talking already.
And especially those of you who have been in education and are feeling a lot of this, we just want to invite you to be generous with wherever you are this afternoon and how you're showing up. As Sarah said, we are going to ask you to turn your cameras on and let us see your faces. This is a conversation that we like to think is one that requires connection. And, we'd just love to see you. So.
All right. So we had another session before this one, and a few of you, I think, were joined us in that one. So we're going to start in the same kind of going down the same path, but then we're going to take a different turn. So we always like to start just by kind of naming and describing how we use the word queer.
Good idea.
We call ourselves a queer endeavor, and we know that the word has a hard history and sometimes offends people. And so we like to just explain how we use it because we use it pretty deliberately. And so we like to break queer down for folks in 2 different ways. And so the first way is that you can think about queer as both an adjective and as a noun. This is probably the more familiar use of the term. When you're using queer in this way, you are referring to people. And that's really important to remember, as Bethy just said, in this moment where there's so much pushback around queer inclusive curriculum and talking about gender and sexual diversity in classrooms and education spaces. Oftentimes the conversation around LGBTQ plus topics gets framed as a controversial issue. And we like to push back on that and say, no, this conversation is about people and families.
Well,
People and families.
okay, hang on. I already
So when you're
disagree with
using
their
queer in this
definition
way,
though,
you are-
because I was told, and this was actually very early on in my red pill journey, I watched a presentation from the Heritage Foundation where they had a lesbian on her panel, and the lesbian was explaining that the reason that she was presenting at the Heritage Foundation, even though that she never really thought she would do anything with the Heritage Foundation, was because she learned that straight people could be considered queer. And apparently, like, you can be considered queer as a straight woman if you don't adhere to traditional norms of femininity. So I already disagree with their definition because they're saying the person is not heterosexual. Well, I've actually been told by people like this that I'm queer because I don't ascribe to traditional feminine stereotypes. So I'm already confused. I don't know. Maybe they'll explain more.
Are signifying a particular person's identity or the whole range of identities and expressions that fall under the LGBTQ plus umbrella. So lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning identities. Sometimes queer is used as shorthand to capture the ever-growing acronym. Something we say a lot is that it's important to let people name and identify themselves. So while not everyone in the LGBTQ plus community calls themselves queer, we do, and calling ourselves a queer endeavor is one way to honor that. When used as a verb, queer means something pretty different. It actually comes from queer theory, and it means to question what counts as normal or common sense in a particular context, like a school or a district. So thinking about the schools we teach and work in, what counts as normal there? And how do those stories or versions of normal come to be? Like, how do we learn who and what counts as normal? How do we learn who and what counts as different? And how do those norms work? Who do they work well for and privilege? And who do they marginalize, silence, and exclude? And so in the context of our work in a queer endeavor, we are really working hard to question what counts as normal and even appropriate to talk about in school spaces. We try to question and push on assumptions surrounding what families and relationships look like, what's possible in terms of how young people identify and who they might become. In terms of classroom practice or teaching practice, bringing a queer approach to what we do means that we're not just talking about LGBTQ plus people. Of course, that's really important. Inclusion matters. But in addition to inclusion, we're also questioning what counts as normal. And that goes, of course, like we center gender and sexuality in our work because there's been such a pervasive silence around it in educational context forever. But it's really important also to interrogate norms that surround race and language, ability, body type.
Why?
So we're constantly thinking about what does it look like to disrupt those norms that, again, work really well for some folks, but marginalize, silence, and exclude.
Why are we talking about disrupting norms in K-12 education? Why is that a priority? I'm sorry. If you look at the National Student Report Card or National School Report Card, about 36% of kids graduate from high school knowing how to read at a 12th grade level. Less than 1/3 of kids graduate from high school knowing how to write at a 12th grade level. Less than, I think it's about 26% of kids graduate from high school knowing how to do math at a 12th grade level. I'm sorry, when you're not teaching kids how to read, write, and do math, which should be the basic function of what public schooling is and accomplishes, then there ain't no time left for disrupting the norms in order to make everyone feel comfortable. That just doesn't make any sense. This is a matter of prioritization. There are a limited number of hours in the day. If you're not teaching kids how to read and write and do math, that is where the focus should be.
So many others.
Okay. So before we dive in, and as
I love that as a woman
we've
with a
mentioned
wheelchair in
couple
the
times, we are
picture.
going to talk to one another today. I want to just say that we don't think of this as a training, again, but more a facilitation. So there's a tremendous amount of expertise in this space. We bring a specific kind, but really you all bring a lot of what you know about your context, the day in and day out of what you who you're around and the context that you're in. And so we're excited to learn with you. So hopefully you'll join us in conversation. And with that being said, we want to acknowledge that we're all coming to this conversation from different places. We like to think that we come together, that when we come together to talk about equity and justice and identity, it's easy and it looks like, I mean, the pictures always kind of crack me up a little bit when you look up like DEI work and then you get like a picture of like this multiracial, a diverse group of people being really happy about being together and talking. And what we know in the work that we do is actually it looks a little bit more like this when we try to talk to each other sometimes. And so
how many people in the chat have actually been through a diversity training in like not happy hour? I know we watch our fair share of diversity trainings, but like how many of you have actually experienced a diversity training in like your workplace, or you know a friend, or you have like a spouse that has experienced a diversity training? Because like I'm gonna bet, maybe I'm just making stuff up, as someone who has done a fair bit of corporate training, and I never did diversity training because I don't believe in that shit. But like I've done a fair bit of corporate training, and I have never actually seen a group of people act like any of these things. For those of you who have been through actual corporate diversity training before, are these images reflective of what you experienced in that training? Or was it more like people showed up and none of them really wanted to be there, and they kind of nodded and smiled and went along with what was happening? And maybe there was like a really enthusiastic person that was like really excited, but most people were just like, I really don't want to be here right now. Like, has anyone ever actually experienced anything that looks like what's on this slide at all? No, exactly. Brian says most of us didn't want to be there. Exactly. And that's true of all corporate training. Listen, I was really lucky when I was doing more. I can't really do like corporate training right now because like I'm out in the world is this, so I do other stuff behind the scenes. But like when I was going in and doing corporate training, like it was one of those things where like most people didn't want to be there, and some people were really excited about it, and it was the job of the trainer to like win them over and make it fun and make it engaging, and I think I did a fairly good job of that. But I never had people angry. I never had people yelling at each other. It's just not the way it works. Most people just don't want to be there. That's just the way it is.
We like to name that, what we've learned in doing this work is that it can be emotional, it's personal, and it's vulnerable. And part of what makes this work hard is that, we all come to it differently. And we want to acknowledge that some folks in this room might be newer to conversations about equity, justice, gender, and sexuality, diversity. And sometimes even the language itself is hard to wrap our heads around. So we just don't say anything. There's an awkwardness. We don't want to say the wrong thing. And so if you're there, we invite you to lean
They
into
literally, what these people do. Oh shit. I just messed it up. Hang on. Is that about where we were? So what these people do is they try to make it seem like everyone's fighting each other when they're in these trainings. They're purposefully trying to provoke conflict. Because if there's no conflict, here's the bitch of white fragility. White fragility has literally taught people that if any white person engages with this subject matter, they're going to be sad and upset, when in fact, most people who engage with this subject matter just don't care. They think it's stupid. But people like this literally go into organizations and try to provoke conflict. Think about how effed up that is. They want this to happen. They want this to be the end result, because if this is not the end result, then that completely disproves the entire premise of their argument in the first place. So they try to provoke this in order to prove the premise of why they're there in the first place.
Looking for hot spots. If you're there, we invite you to show up like that, right? Somebody who's got some experience and willing to share your knowledge and expertise. And then of course, always finding places where you can.
I think I skipped over some stuff, but I just really don't care that much to go back and find exactly the spot.
In the chat, the captions, is that something that we do on our end? Or is that an invitation for folks in the audience to turn on their captions?
I don't think that's anything you have to do. We'll take care of that.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. So given the different ways that, as Bethy just said, we're situated in conversations about diversity, equity, identity, given who we are, and given the fact that these conversations are often vulnerable and emotional, we always start our facilitations by asking folks to reflect, and to start by centering ourselves and turning inward before jumping into action. We have learned, we've facilitated conversations like this one with 10,000 educators at this point. And sometimes we find that folks are very eager to jump to the action step. Just give me the binder of resources and, best practices that I can implement tomorrow to make my practices more affirming. And taking action is important. We will share some things that you can do. But we firmly believe that the first step toward any positive social change involves starting with ourselves, turning inward to confront the assumptions, biases, vulnerabilities, and the strengths that we bring to conversations like this one. And then also creating space for us to listen to what other folks are also bringing, because we do this work in community. And we love this quote from Gloria Anzaldúa because she captures the importance of doing that internal work so beautifully. She says, "The struggle is inner. The struggle has always been inner and is played out in outer terrains. Awareness of our situation must come before inner changes, which in turn come before changes in society. Nothing happens in the real world unless it first happens in the images in our heads." As Bethy said, and as our slides have kind of shown, conversations about identity, equity, and diversity are not always easy. And we know that sometimes the tendency is to avoid participating in the conversations because of our fears of being vulnerable. Often in conversations around gender and sexual diversity, that shows up as fears of saying the wrong thing. We just want to name that. And we want to invite you, as you prepare to engage in today's important and maybe uncomfortable conversation, we just want to give you an opportunity to ground first in how you're showing up, what's coming up for you. So I'm going to kind of read aloud a few questions that I just want you to silently reflect on and take stock of what
Look
you're
at one of us
noticing
already
in
got her
this
eyes
moment. So maybe
closed. Oh no,
close
they're
your
open
eyes.
again.
The first question
She looks
for
so
you is,
miserable.
what will today's conversation about gender, sexual, and family diversity and LGBTQ plus people and the learning that you still have to do, what might that potentially bring up for you? Take a moment just to check in with what's going on in your body right now. What's this conversation bringing up for you personally?
I'm going to tell you, so as someone who literally wrote a book about mindfulness, I am deeply committed to the positive impact that mindfulness can have on someone's life and their stress level and their experience in the world. God knows what would have happened to me in the last couple of years if I didn't have mindfulness to fall back on, because people think I've gone insane. Holy hell, I probably would have gone a whole lot more insane without mindfulness. And the reason I say this is it really fucking burns me when people like this try to use mindfulness against people. What they're doing is they're trying to disarm people to make them more susceptible to their bullshit. That's what they're doing. They're trying to get you to override the natural instincts that your brain is going to send you saying, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right. They're trying to get you to override that just by saying, just be aware of what's going on in your body. And when you have discomfort, just breathe into it and move beyond that discomfort. They're trying to make you more susceptible to the bullshit that they're spewing, and it's wrong. And it is a complete misappropriation of what mindfulness is and what it's meant for. Just saying.
Now think about a vulnerability you might be holding, something that could limit your willingness to participate wholeheartedly in this conversation. Now think about a strength you're bringing this afternoon that will help you to engage openly and honestly. And then finally, take a moment to think about the vulnerabilities and strengths.
She's also
that
not giving
other
people enough
folks
time to
in
actually
this
do this.
Zoom
So I
room
guess
might
they
be
kind of suck
bringing.
at weaponizing mindfulness, but she's not giving people enough time to do it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna invite you to turn your cameras on if you want to, and so we can see all your lovely faces. And what we're gonna do here in the chat, because we can't do breakout rooms, is just share some vulnerabilities and strengths.
Oh, good.
And so if you have
That's definitely something you want to broadcast live on the fucking internet.
S and share out in the chat. What is this conversation? What are you bringing to this conversation? Part of why we do this is because, you know, this is the way we norm the space. A lot of times in conversations like this, we'll have, you know, some rules like attribute the best intentions, be respectful, you know, things that are, we should humanly just kind of like know.
Got a super chat from Jamie. Jamie, thank you for that. Why is the left demanding there are problems when there aren't, and then they create the problem? Are they all grifters? No, I mean, I think a lot of them have actually been convinced that there is a problem. A lot of them don't know what they're doing, is the thing. They aren't aware of what they're doing. They aren't aware that they're actually creating the problems that they're complaining about. But that's what's happening, is that they complain about something so much that eventually it becomes a real thing. But most people aren't consciously aware of this. And to be quite frank, a lot of people do this in their real lives naturally. They just don't do it with social justice related issues. Like for example, if someone wants to get a new job, they hate their current job and they're miserable in their current job, but then they start talking to themselves in their head and they're like, oh, no one's ever going to hire me, and I don't know how to update my resume, and I don't want to go on job interviews, and oh my God, I'm never going to be able to make this much money again. And they talk themselves out of applying for the new job, even though they really want it, by convincing themselves that there are problems where no problem exists. So this is not just something that is exclusive of the left. This literally happens all the time on normal everyday occurrences. But the left is absolutely doing this when it comes to social justice related issues. They are projecting that there's a problem because of their own insecurities. And then through their projection of that problem, they are then creating the problem where no problem existed in the first place.
And sometimes that doesn't happen. And so we like to say, who's in this space? What are we bringing? Let's pay attention as a way to set norms for the space. And so let's spend a few minutes in the chat taking in what your colleagues are bringing and what you are bringing.
This is so awkward and bad. Are you going to read any of these things, or are we just going to nod and smile at the camera, corporate trainers? Are you going to help your audience along, or are we just staring into the camera now? This is so awkward and bad. Why did they put this online? I don't understand. Oh my God, this is so bad.
Yeah, thank you for these.
Stunning and brave. Stunning and brave.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, very vulnerable, very brave. Thank you for sharing.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And just, you know, take in what folks are saying. This is who's here. We're here to do some good work together and hold each other accountable while holding each other tenderly, right? It's hard work and slow work.
You do not hold each other tenderly in a training.
Somewhat frustrating.
No,
so
that is incorrect.
Okay.
There is no tender holding in a training.
We want to pause here to unpack some language.
What the fuck is that?
Really important to
Why are they
conversations
throwing up
around
rainbow
gender
into
and
each
sexual
other's
diversity.
mouths?
We know more broadly that language matters, right? It's through language that we name and identify ourselves.
Thank you. I am weeping as well.
The world around us.
Thank you.
That we connect with one another through dialogue and discourse. And because we all land in this conversation
Why are they throwing up a rainbow into each other's mouths?
Embodied and embodied experiences and histories with gender and sexual diversity, it's important that we build a common language so that we can all participate in the conversation. And so, you know, we could spend 90 minutes just on terminology. We're not going to do that. We always invite folks to spend some time on Google and do your own, take responsibility for your own education and your own learning.
Excuse me. Yes, that's how babies are made.
But
I'm
just
sorry.
to kind of create
Yes.
a baseline of shared understanding, we're going to show you a 2-minute video on terminology that we created
good.
to support a district's implementation of a district-wide policy on supporting
Wait.
transgender.
I just want to repeat what she just said because we were all making fun of the rainbow barf. They are showing us a 2-minute video that they created for a school district. For a school district. So what we're about to see has literally been used in K-12 schools. Everyone just buckle up. Put down anything sharp you might. I know I have knitting needles in my hand, but put down anything sharp. All right, let's see. What's this going to be?
And gender non-conforming youth. And so this video will not go over everything you might want to know about the LGBTQ plus lexicon, but it will go over some basic concepts and terms and their definitions. One thing that we hear from young people a lot is that they want the adults and educators in their lives to understand the differences between gender and sexuality.
No,
and
you
so
don't
the
hear
video
that.
does,
You don't hear that.
distinguish between
No
those, so
child
pay
has ever
attention to
told you that. That is a lie.
We'll take a quick couple minutes after the video to see if there are lingering questions that we need to address.
Can you imagine someone at like 8, 9, 10, you know, even like 13, 14, 15 saying to these two women, can you imagine, like, just imagine like a child or even like a young teenager saying, do you know what I really want adults to know? I want them to know the difference between sexuality and gender. I think that this is the most important thing that my parents and my teachers need to know about me is the difference between sexuality at 10 fucking years old. No, that didn't happen. That is a lie. I don't believe it.
We're moving forward.
As guidelines for supporting transgender and non-binary youth suggest, there are some important terms to learn that are essential to understanding the policy itself, as well as your role in enacting it. Keep in mind that these terms and their definitions are constantly evolving. Currently, here's how we understand them. When babies are born, they're typically assigned a sex at birth: male, female, or in some cases, intersex. These designations are largely based on physical attributes, including external genitalia and sex chromosomes. They can become challenging for youth who develop a sense of themselves that does not correspond to the designation that they were assigned at birth, which brings us to gender identity.
What the hell is it with
Gender
these pictures?
identity is the deeply felt sense of who we are and how we identify in terms of gender. It's how we see and identify ourselves. Everyone has a gender identity. Some people identify as male, others as female, and some people identify as a combination of genders, as neither male nor female, or as no gender at all. A good rule of thumb is to let people identify themselves and to create spaces that affirm a range of gender identities beyond male or female. Gender expression refers to how we express our gender identity. For example, through names, pronouns, what we wear, how we style our hair, and what we like to do. Transgender is an umbrella term for people whose gender identity differs from the sex they were assigned at birth. There are many ways to identify as transgender, and not all folks who identify as trans seek medical interventions such as hormone replacement.
Did anyone ever see the cartoon Salad Fingers? I fucking loved Salad Fingers. It was like the best cartoon ever. It's very creepy. It's really creepy, but I like creepy stuff. Like, these cartoons in this video remind me of Salad Fingers. They really do. They're so creepy. They're not happy. They're dark. They're gloomy. They're depressing. Why are we using these to represent people in a training for a school district?
Replacement therapy and or surgeries. Gender nonconforming and gender expansive are terms used by people who do not conform to norms typically associated with traditional expectations of binary gender, masculinity, and femininity. Not all people who are gender nonconforming identify as transgender. Sexual orientation describes an individual's physical, romantic, and or emotional attraction to another person,
L, G, B, and T are often lumped together as if they are the same, when in fact they aren't. L, G, and B refer to ways that people identify in terms of sexual orientation, and T indicates a person's gender identity. Gender identity and sexual orientation are not the same.
Okay, so because of time, we're just going to do this as a large group and invite you if there's something that you're really like, I need to know what that means, or have a burning question that I feel like needs to be resolved before we move forward with this session. Please unmute and let us know what it is, or use the chat. What questions, burning questions, do we need to address as a group about terminology?
Nothing. Yay.
Got the gifted group.
Which means they're not getting any questions.
All right. We're going to roll on. If there's anything that comes up throughout the course of this time, just stop us. And we will figure it out with y'all. All right. So we're going to turn now to
That was a lot of silence right there.
our gender expert, Riley.
Oh, a gender expert
So
at
in these
5 years old.
facilitations, we really
Yes.
want to move beyond an anti-bullying discourse that is typically used in conversations about LGBTQ plus youth. As Sarah mentioned, we'd like to push on taken for granted norms and assumptions about what counts as normal or even appropriate, especially in the context of schools. And one of the ways that we plug in is really thinking about this construct of gender, because it's what kids very early on start to sort of police each other around. So we're going to take a listen to Riley. Thanks for your patience in all this sharing. I'm not quite used to sharing all the screens.
A gender expert at 5.
Oops. It's not what. No, see if will it show up on there?
Mhm.
Okay. All right, here we go.
Would it be fair for all the girls to buy princesses and all the boys to buy superheroes?
Well, why?
Because girls want superheroes and the boys want superheroes, and the girls want pink stuff, and the boys don't want pink stuff. Yeah,
Boys want both, but why do you think they do that?
because the companies who make these try to trick the girls into buying the pink stuff instead of stuff that boys want to buy, right?
Right, but you can buy either, right? And boys can buy either. If boys want to buy pink, they can buy pink, right?
Yeah, so then why don't all the girls have to buy princesses? Some girls like superheroes, some girls like princesses. Some boy like superheroes, some boy like princesses.
Absolutely,
So
you're absolutely
then
right.
why does all the girls have to buy pink stuff and all the boys have to buy different color stuff?
It's a good question, Riley.
Well, okay, so 5-year-old Riley is, of course, not wrong about any of that. Like, I played G.I. Joes growing up, where Riley might need a little bit of guidance. I try to convince her she likes superheroes and not princesses, that means she's a boy. Or worse yet, because, I mean, of course, it's bad if the parents do it, but worse yet, when Riley's kindergarten teacher tries to convince her that because she wants to play with the superhero dolls, that she is really a boy. That's where the problem comes in. It's not that Riley can't play with superheroes or that boys can't play with princess dolls or whatever the F. It's when the teachers then obfuscate the parents to say, you know what it means because you wanted a Batman doll? That means you're really a boy. That's where the problem starts.
All right, so that's all we have for you today. No, just kidding. So here we have Riley, who's getting at this very entrenched gender binary that really starts to affect us very early on in our lives. And we start with gender again, because it's what kids start noticing and policing each other around. And sometimes teachers and adults in the space do the policing too, right? And these are the pink and blue rules that Riley's getting at. And they really have to do with masculinity and femininity. And they say that, you know, if you're a boy, if you were born and identified as a boy, then you have to do masculine things. And if you're a girl, you have to do feminine things. And if you don't, we're going to notice, right? And we're going to call it out. And so in elementary school, the rules of the gender binary are strongly in place, and kids who break those rules again are noticed in ways that are often, you know, maybe unkind. And what we know is that for students whose bodies or whose gender identities or expressions challenge or defy those norms, school can be a pretty unaffirming and dangerous place to be. And as the gender rules start to make their ways into middle schools and high schools, this is when the stakes become a bit higher. And this is when gender and sexual orientation.
I didn't want you guys to see me blowing my nose. That was all that was.
So while, you know, boys can't like pink in elementary school, boys who like pink or express femininity in some way in middle school or high school are often teased for being gay, right? And so what we know is that around bullying with regard to LGBTQ students, it's not that students are coming to school necessarily and coming out as gay or lesbian or queer, but they're performing gender outside of the gender binary, and that's what's making them a target, right? So there's this big misunderstanding that gender is a proxy for sexual orientation, which is not the case. And so what we want you all to do, share my screen again, is to think about these questions that we have for you.
Alex, I can't believe you had a pink Game Boy. That seems so unlike you.
And this isn't just with kids. I think it's important that, you know, in the last session.
Yeah. No, not that, Peter.
In spaces like youth serving adults, there were probably people
sadly that, not that type of
blowing, you know, are with adults all the time. And I think sometimes it's easier for us to be like, oh yeah, kids, but let's think about how these rules impact us and our work environments as well. So in the chat, take a few minutes, or you can unmute and share out. What does gender look like at your school or in your workplace? How do you see masculinity and femininity functioning through norms, student and adult behavior, language, curriculum? How are gender norms complicated even further when you put them into conversation with race and culture? So let's think about these questions. Use the chat. You put those questions in the chat, and we'll put the questions in the chat, and then we'll. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can just see.
So you can stare aimlessly at the screen again. Here, I'm going to do them. Brave, very vulnerable. Yes. Yes. This is so awkward. This is so bad. What's going on?
Yeah.
Yes. Brave. Definitely. Absolutely. Yes. Very vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
If you're in a school or in a position where you're working with youth, can you raise your Zoom hand or your regular one?
They're not getting any interaction is what's going on. They're prompting interaction because they're not getting any.
Okay. Thank you.
They got like one person.
Mm-hmm. All right. I know y'all are just warming up. So
that means you didn't get any answers. That means there were no answers.
About, like what this work is all about.
Started. You're going to be more talkative later.
And I think necessarily,
I know you're just feeling vulnerable and you're feeling
supporting
frustrated.
Individual students. So, you know, even policies are like aim to support trans students or to protect LGBTQ students. And we want to offer that this work is much more cultural and, encourage you all to think about, the ways that gender functions and the actual like material impacts that those norms have on students, all of us really. Yeah, the data sets, that's a big one, right? And even getting students, if you don't have a data set with, more than the binary, getting students to talk about that. Like, who are we leaving out here? What could we be missing? So using an absence to kind of make a presence known. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Okay. We do want to mention, that this work and, more and more, we really have to come together as communities who are minoritized, especially in schools, and recognize that, students at the intersections of minoritized identities, so LGBTQ youth of color often experience additional stress and adverse effects to their health and well-being as a result of their intersecting identities. We're going to show you a film in
Oh, good. Another film. Oh, good.
Sarah will talk about it. We made it about 10 years ago. And we are working with Denver Public Schools right now to create a new film. And
let's just keep that in mind. Denver Public Schools. Anyone from Colorado? Anyone from Denver? Denver Public Schools. They're working with these crazy bitches.
We just had our event the other night, and we had a lot of queer students of color who talked.
You did not have a lot of queer students of color in Denver. You're so full of shit.
The tension of being a person of color and a queer person, and even in.
How many people in the chat believe that in Denver they had a large amount of queer students of color show up at their workshop event? I say no. I call bullshit. I'm not saying there are no queer students of color in Denver. I'm just saying that I don't think that there was a plethora of them who showed up at an event with these two. I call bullshit. That didn't happen.
Like gay straight alliances are mostly white, and then Black Student Alliance are mostly straight and cisgender. And so really thinking about how we create spaces for people's whole beings and to honor their lived experiences.
Yeah, I'm sure Elizabeth Warren showed up from Massachusetts.
Is really critical.
All right, so
why are all their pictures creepy?
Together, we are going to turn to Youth Voice. We're going to show you a 21-minute locally produced documentary.
A 21-minute video?
We made about 10 years ago. And, we learned very early in our work that it's one thing to talk about.
Why are we watching a 21-minute video? Yes, Peter, Denver is definitely very liberal, but I also think that Denver is very white. I could be wrong about that. I mean, I'm sure it's not as white as New Hampshire is, but I think that Denver is pretty effing white. I could be wrong, though.
Why this work is important and to talk about the young people who are implicated in this conversation, but it's a whole other thing to listen to young people talk about their experiences in schools. And so that's why we were motivated to create the film. And it's really the centerpiece of every kind of first level facilitation that we do around gender and sexual diversity. So what you'll see featured in the film is a group of middle school, high school, and college-aged youth. Some identify as LGBTQ, others identify as allies, and we really just wanted them to have a conversation with each other about school, where they feel the most safe, the least safe, the most seen and unseen. And in the audience was a large group of pre and service educators from our community. We just wanted those adults to witness the conversation. And so as you watch, think about the young people you engage with in your lives and maybe support in schools. What might those young people say if they were having a conversation like this one? And if you support younger learners, what might they say in 10 years about their experiences in schools and in your community? And what do you wish they would say? We do want to mention that the students in the film bring up suicide.
I just want to acknowledge this chat because I just think it's a really nice chat. And I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. I had brain damage before the shutdowns and lost ability to walk due to lack of treatment. I'm really sorry to hear that. That really sucks. I used to work in healthcare and now in poverty in Portland. I just ordered the book to learn how to help. Thank you for spending money on the book. I really do appreciate that. And I hope you love the book. And let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything I can help you out with. And definitely make sure you join book club. Even if you aren't through the first part of the book by tomorrow, that's okay. Still come and join us in book club. Again, the way that you sign up for the Actively Unwoke book club is by emailing bookclub@activelyunwoke.com. Do it right now while you're on the chat and just send me your receipt and I will sign you up for book club. And that way you can come and join us and it's totally free. And I hope it helps you out.
Sensitive way. And so we know that can be triggering for some folks. So just take care of yourselves as that comes up.
I would say that your job is to teach every kid who comes into your class and to accept them as human beings and to appreciate all facets of who they are.
Before about social justice, this needs to be central to what we do, not on the periphery.
It is the reality. So you don't have to agree with it or do anything in support of it other than recognizing that it is real and therefore it is something that you have to think about when you are planning on teaching children how to learn and be in this world.
Not all teachers are educated on LGBT, bullying, LGBT topics. And I think that really is where the base of the problem is.
Some teachers do not have the guts to go up to someone and tell them that that's not okay. And some teachers may not even care because they don't even know about this topic.
I think there's also, there are probably teachers in the US that generally are homophobic.
Wow.
I think is probably the library where GSA meets because it's the only place where I can go without being made fun of.
They've literally been taught all of this. Hang on. Those students have literally been taught all of this by the adults. Let's just wrap our heads around that for a second. The students aren't. I'm sorry. I do not believe that students have, generally speaking, a tremendous amount of even connection with homophobia. Listen, man. I grew up in the 90s. I grew up before gay marriage was even like accepted by the Democrats. I was campaigning for civil unions in Vermont before gay marriage was even something that could be campaigned for. And so I've seen actual homophobia, and to be quite frank, the closest thing that I see to actual homophobia today comes from the fucking left. It comes from people who tell gay men and lesbians that they have to sleep with people that they don't want to sleep with or else they're transphobic. That's what homophobia looks like today. These kids have never had any interaction with real homophobia that did not come from the woke left. They're reciting things, and I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of stuff in this video, but like they're citing things that they have been taught by adults. They have been taught by adults. And Katie, Bryson Gray is one of the most homophobic people that I've ever met in my life. And no offense to you, I hear that you like his new song, but Bryson Gray is a raging fucking homophobe. I'm sorry. I take back that homophobia only exists on the left. Bryson Gray and people like him are raging homophobes. I'm sorry. I take back my original statement. So yes, if the kids in this video have interacted with Bryson Gray, they actually probably have encountered homophobia. The song might be great. I have no idea. All I know is that Bryson Gray is a raging homophobe, and I'm going to call that out because that's what I do.
I wish that when I was in school, I had had teachers who would have talked with me, who would have talked with my classmates, who would have said,
Katie, Bryson Gray is not beating anyone's ass. Bryson Gray is such a pussy. Have you ever met him in real life? Because I have. Bryson Gray Bryson Gray is not even man enough to look me in the eye. That's how much of a pussy that Bryson Gray is. I'm sorry. Again, I'm sure his song is great, but he is a raging homophobe and he is a coward and he is not anyone to be emulated. You can listen to his music if you like. I hope you love it, but like, that dude is not someone to emulate. I'm sorry. No, wrong. I disagree.
You are here and you deserve to be. There needs to be more done to support teachers in becoming the kind of allies we all wish we had had. At the University of Colorado at Boulder, I had the privilege of joining 70+ pre- and in-service teachers for an evening with a group of LGBTQ youth.
I just want it noted. They're all fucking white. What did I say about Colorado being white? All white. Except there's some Hispanics there too.
And allies. The idea for this evening came out of the need to better prepare future teachers to support LGBTQ students and to create classrooms and schools that are inclusive and safe for all students to be themselves.
Mostly every school. That's so gay, you're such a fag, the retarded word, all those.
Yes, I will absolutely call Bryson Gray homophobic because Bryson Gray is a raging fucking homophobe. He is. He is. And I have fought back more against woke culture than Bryson Gray has. I'm sorry. Bryson Gray releases music and he wears a big hat sometimes, and that's fine. If you like his music, that's fine. But Bryson Gray is a raging fucking homophobe. And no one here, Katie, literally no one here is looking up to mentally ill pedos. In fact, the people here that are watching this have probably done more to expose grooming in schools than Bryson Gray has. A lot of the people watching this were the ones that helped work on exposing the grooming in the Burlington School District. So don't tell anyone here that they're looking up to pedos and just being so mean to poor Bryson, who is a raging fucking homophobe.
Those words are definitely going to be thrown around just because that's the age that people are at.
I know that in my school, people definitely use like "that's so gay" and call people like the F word, and teachers usually don't do much about it. They just kind of ignore it unless there's an actual like obvious bullying situation going on.
At my school, you get bullied a lot because I'm pretty open about.
And just so we're clear, the reason that I call this bullshit out on the right, Bryson Gray is like legit alt-right, is that it's not helpful. I'm sorry. Like every time Bryson Gray goes out and says something that's like ragingly homophobic, it hurts all of us. It actually makes it, Katie, for you're talking about like pedos in schools, people like Bryson Gray actually make it more difficult for people like me to fight back against the groomers in the schools because of the nonsense they say. He makes it harder. They make it harder. Because every single time that he says ragingly homophobic shit, you know what happens? The left picks that up and they're like, this is what the right looks like. And they just want to get rid of all gay people and they don't want to accept them at all. And then that makes it harder for people like me who I'm like, I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're I don't care if you're non-binary. I don't care if you're trans. I just don't want you medically transitioned before you're 18. Like, it makes it harder on the rest of us. So I'm not just shit-talking Bryson Gray to shit-talk Bryson Gray, although I have absolutely no problem with doing that too. I just want it noted that people on the right who cling on to this moral majority, like religious authoritarianism, they make it so much harder to fight back against people like this. It is a big effing problem, and it has created a lot of obstacles that didn't need to be put there, and people like Bryson Gray actually make the people in this video more successful.
My sexuality,
Had to get that off my
our teachers
chest.
don't do anything about what's going on. You know, we have a few teachers that have actually been part of our GSA and have helped us, but honestly, we don't get a whole lot of support from, you know, our community.
I think that the teachers not responding shows the person who is being called the name that they don't care about them as much as they might other students, or that they don't care about the student population as a whole. And I also think that it shows the person who's calling.
Literally no one is advocating for a whole month for Pride. I just want them to be treated like normal people and left alone to live their lives. Literally no one has called for that, Katie. Jesus Christ. And I agree with this too. I was born in 1980. I used to be a lefty. Now I'm over the two-party illusion. Yes, the left is absolutely worse. The left is 100% worse. But do you know what really pisses me off? When people on the right make it harder to fight back against the left by promoting religious authoritarianism.
The names that they have the power to do it again.
While you're creating safe spaces and like talking about LGBTQ, make sure to include transgender and gender identities, because I feel like in school, a lot of times they talk about gay and straight, well, not a lot, but gender stuff like almost never gets mentioned.
I think of like myself as a trans.
Excuse me. Hang on. They should try to leave themselves out of everything? No, Katie. No. Would you ever say that to anyone on your side? You should try to leave yourselves out of everything? See, this is the thing that people don't understand. I actually spend more fucking time arguing with religious authoritarian conservatives than I do with the woke left because of stupid shit like this. Because of ragingly stupid shit like this. You guys want to know what's taken up all my time for the past 2 days? It's been arguing with fucking conservatives who are acting like raging fucking morons and making all of this harder on the rest of us who are legitimately interested in fighting back. Conservatives have no interest in winning this fight. All they do is complain about there's a whole month dedicated to Pride and then buy Bryson Gray's latest album and think that they fought back against the left. I'm sorry, Katie, if you keep this shit up, I'm just going to block you. This stuff is not welcome here. We are interested in actually making progress, and half of my chat is fucking gay. So you can take the Bryson Gray gay-hating bullshit right on out of here. If that's what you're bringing, like, I don't care if you guys listen to Bryson Gray, but I'm not having that homophobic bullshit in my chat. I'll tell you that right now. That is not going to happen. I have to deal with this shit way too much. It is way too much of a distraction. It is so egregiously unnecessary. How much more progress could we have made fighting back against the woke left if it wasn't for bullshit like this happening on the right? And this is all your guys' fault for making me drink that tiki beer. I'm just saying.
Kid, like, it would have meant the world to me to have a teacher ask me, like, how would you like me to address you? Let's have a conversation about that. Not in front of the whole class, because that's super awkward.
When I reflect on my schooling experience, being like a queer individual, for me, it's interesting that when we talk about elementary school, we talk about it as time that's like, oh, I don't know how we're going to talk about gender and sexuality in elementary school. Because for me, like, I feel like some of the most like vivid memories I have of like trauma in school is really like elementary school, especially for like gender variant individuals. Like, elementary school is one of the most challenging times. And I think that it comes down to like when we are in elementary school.
See, this is why right here. Keep freaking out, not dating, pro-Christian, only fuck 40 years old, freaking out like a teenager. Katie, you're literally the one reading in my chat, bitch. You're literally the one reading in my chat. But don't worry about it, honey, because you're going to get blocked now. Goodbye. Forever. Go away.
Well, that's really when we do a lot of our socializing of gender norms in those spaces.
Every fucking time. Okay, I'm sorry.
Really
I need to stop and do a rant because every fucking time we sit down to try to do something productive, I've got a fucking religious Christian conservative coming in trying to push this authoritarian bullshit. It's like, why can't people just sit the fuck back and let other people live their lives? It is none of your fucking business who puts what where and how they do it. How someone else has sex has no bearing on your life at all. And yet this is what I deal with all the time. This is why we can't make any fucking progress. This is what makes calling out grooming in the schools so much harder. Because the minute you do, you're going to have religious fucking moral majority bullshit come in to be like, ew, we need to get rid of all the gays. Oh, fuck them. They shouldn't be allowed to get married. Mark my words. The conservatives are absolutely going to try to repeal gay marriage because they don't know what else to do. And it's just like, God damn it. In 2020, there was this big tent movement on the right where they were like, we love the gays, come vote for Trump, gays for Trump. They had all this fucking rainbow shit and everyone was fine. I was actually at the protest in DC right after the election, the first Million MAGA march, where I witnessed a group of fucking Trump supporters surrounding a raging homophobe and starting to chant, Trump loves gays. Trump loves gays. Scott Pressler is universally admired on the right. Fucking that walkaway bullshit, like, you know what? For all the bullshit that Brandon Strzok has done to me, he's actually done a lot. And still this bullshit. It is so infuriating that this is where people have to spend their time because of this moral majority, authoritarian, Christian fucking conservative bullshit. And I don't mind people being Christian. I mind people being authoritarian. Did anyone see Marjorie Taylor Greene's video where she's talking about fucking Christian nationalism? That just happened today. If you didn't see it, Marjorie Taylor Greene released a whole fucking video talking about how we should be embracing Christian nationalism. The First Amendment is a thing in this country. If you are a Christian, fine. But do not force your religious values on anyone else. It is not your business. Jesus Christ. I saw a super chat somewhere. King Peter of the chat says, Donald Trump, first president to support gay marriage before he was elected. Evangelical conservatives need to sit down. You're as authoritarian as the left. That is exactly right. That is exactly right. All right. Okay. Breathe. Breathe. The authoritarian Christians aren't getting me down today. Now we're going to focus on this crazy fucking video.
To really have these groups of people that are, you when you go there, you know that you won't be singled out or judged, because this is like a really frightening time, and some people are really cruel, and that's like a really hard thing to accept for someone who's going through this probably really rough time.
Something that hasn't been really mentioned yet is bullying can get so severe where, teenagers or students start thinking about harming themselves or even suicide or anything like that. So that's something to look forward to. I'm sorry, it's really touchy for me, but it's just something you really need to look signs for.
Like, people say that words can't really hurt you, but really they do. It's really hard to see that now. It can really hurt somebody.
I close my eyes to see all of the reasons we believe we're always right. We hold the light. We're always free. No moment stays more than what.
I'm gonna get a fucking copyright strike or something on my channel for this song. I can already tell that.
Maybe we're touched. Briefly we
God. Sam says it wouldn't be a leftist video without cry bullying. Isn't that the truth, man? Isn't that the truth? Why are we watching this? Listen, okay. This is the very definition of weaponized empathy. Right here. This is the very definition of weaponized empathy. And I'm going to say it. I'm just going to fucking say it because who really cares? It's my channel. I do what I want. But who's to say that these kids weren't convinced that no one would love them and support them by social justice warriors just like the women who made these videos? Any child, anyone, not even just a child, anyone taking their own lives is a tragedy. But I'm gonna, like, these people literally are the kings and queens of creating a problem where nothing existed in the first place. And who's to say that the reason that at least some of these kids took their own lives wasn't because they had an adult try to convince them that they weren't loved and valued and appreciated for exactly who they were, when that isn't the truth.
I recognize the light in the skies is bigger than all.
This video might be another 45 minutes of a list. We don't know yet.
Yes, I recognize
We don't know
the
yet.
light in the skies is bigger than me. It's bigger than me.
This isn't a topic that you can shove in the back corner of your closet. People's lives are at stake. People are dying. And if you're becoming a teacher, you really have to persevere with every issue, if that's race, sexual identity, girls, boys, everything. You just have to work hard and make sure that everyone's feeling accepted.
Right now, schools of education are being challenged to do this important work. Though this has not proven to be easy, conversations are often difficult to have. There is confusion,
That's the other version of the gender
curiosity,
unicorn.
and even fear about
That's
how
the
this
other
should all
gender
look.
unicorn, the
And
gender
somehow,
gingerbread
there is
man or
still
whatever
this
the fuck.
idea of the bravery it will take for teachers to really meet this challenge.
I mean, all those little environmental things that we feel when we're in school, the teachers are feeling too. And that can make it difficult for them to stand up, just like it's hard for us to stand up sometimes.
Well, we got asked why we would think you wouldn't stand up, but why do you think you wouldn't stand up?
Can I rephrase that differently too? What would you do if you heard those words in the hallway or in your classroom?
I think I would do something, but I think the fear would come out of being afraid that I would make the situation worse, not having the right words.
They're literally learning these things from adults. They're literally, it is so, every time we see a video with kids in it, and by the way, guys, I have a rule on my channel that we don't make fun of kids when we see them in videos because they're being trained to do this by adults. They're literally using adult language that does not remotely appear in a teenager's vocabulary at all. They're parroting the language that adults have given them. And I don't know if they met those adults in school. I don't know if they saw them on the internet. I don't know where they got the language from, but they are parroting the language of adults. King Peter of the chat says, Republicans, here's the game. If we run Liberty Republican candidates, people like Karlyn might vote strategically on the national level. If we run moral majority type, I am voting Libertarian top to bottom. Peter, that's exactly right. That is exactly right. I will vote for Liberty Republicans if there's not a better Libertarian candidate running against them. But, like, I will never vote for a rhino. I will never vote for someone who's a moral majority Christian. I will only vote for true. I would vote for Thomas Massey. Absolutely. I'd vote for Rand Paul. 100%. Every day of the week. Every day of the week, I would vote for those guys. I ain't voting for most of the people running on the Republican ticket. It's not going to happen. I would sooner lose than vote for people on the Republican ticket. I would sooner have a Democrat win than vote for a rhino or a moral majority authoritarian Christian. I would absolutely prefer a Democrat every day of the week because when Democrats win against bad Republican candidates, that should be a lesson to the GOP to stop nominating shitty people for office. But you can win me over with a good Liberty Republican who just wants to actually protect things in the Constitution. You can win me over with that. You can't win me over with anything else. And the Libertarian Party, just in case people haven't been keeping up, the Libertarian Party just came under new management less than a week ago. The Libertarian Party has completely excised wokeism from its leadership ranks. There is not a single woke person in any position of leadership or decision-making within the Libertarian Party as of last Sunday. So that's going to start changing really, really significantly. And I think it's going to be a problem for Republicans that they haven't realized yet. But we'll see. Brian, am I voting for myself? Of course I'm voting for myself. We're working very hard to get both me and Jeremy Kauffman on the ballot. I have now, so one of the things that's been taking up more time than necessary in the past couple days, and I know this is actually going to make some of you guys really excited, I'm about to actually run a legitimate campaign for governor. I don't want to, but I've been forced into a position of needing to. And so I will be voting for myself. I will be on the ballot. It's going to happen. There might even be merch that people can buy. Because now we've been put in a position of being fucked by our own damn party. So more on that to come very soon.
I'm from a background where I've never really had to struggle with anything. Like, that's the bottom line, you know? And so it's hard. I think it's hard for people like me, and most teachers are white upper middle class.
Well, Rick, we have to, yeah, this is something we're going to be working on changing, but we have to get about 5,000 signatures to be able to be on the ballot. We're getting there. It's going to happen. There's a major push to do it. We're paying for some signatures. We're collecting a lot of them on our own. But yeah, we're going to be looking into changing that in the future, but there's just nothing we can do right now. No, I will never be stopping my YouTube channels because I'm a libertarian. Ain't no way I'm winning any election. I'm not winning any effing. No, I'm not wearing a lizard suit. It's not going to happen. No one needs to get their hopes up. Sununu does need to get booted, but he's going to win. We need to be honest about this, guys. Chris Sununu's going to win. I now have a different target. There are more shenanigans going on. I have a different target that's not Chris Sununu. We're going to talk more about that next week.
Straight women like me to recognize that students, our kids, are struggling with major issues.
I think my biggest fear in terms of creating a safe, inclusive learning environment would be saying the wrong thing.
I'm going into elementary ed, so I'm still trying to discover how to do.
Hang on, super chat. George Andrevalso Nunez says, I hope you could recharge batteries and deal with the BS yesterday. You're a fighter and you'll get to the other side of this. I mean, it seems as though I'm dealing with a perpetual amount of BS. So I'm doing the best I can, but I'm a little floored at the moment. If you guys can't tell, it's not the beer. I'm actually just floored.
Deal with these situations with young children. And I think the fear of saying,
and I have fucking had it with conservatives who make it harder for me.
Great, but then they're also going to take it to their parents, and it's the fear of getting fired. I mean, you can be fired. All of that aside, the child is always your priority. You always have to be an advocate for that child. I mean, there's nothing else. You have to be that advocate. They have to be the priority all the time.
My daughter needed teachers to feel safe being out, safer than they did.
There really weren't
positive
role models or things I could really look
See,
to.
here's the thing with the left. They always make it about the poor, abused teachers. That woman literally just said, my daughter, as a student, needed my teacher to be out. They needed to feel safe being out. No, she didn't. No, she didn't. Teachers do not need their students to know their sexuality. I'm sorry. If you in your classroom, in your public school, government-funded, taxpayer-paid-for classroom, are talking with your students about who you are sleeping with, that's not correct. I disagree. Students do not need to know what is going on in the teacher's bedroom. In fact, students should probably not even be thinking about what's going on in the teacher bedroom. I'm just saying. When I was in school, it never even occurred to me that my teachers had spouses. Because it wasn't relevant. You want to know why? Because they were teaching me how to read, write, and do math. It was not relevant. Excuse me, guys. Sin says, please don't wear that flowery dress out. No, don't worry. What she's responding to is Alex made a smartass remark about if I win, I have to wear a flowery dress. No. Actually, I do actually own a flowery dress. I do own one. You're never going to see it, though. Just because you sent in that chat, Alex, you're never, ever, ever going to see that flowery dress. Sean says, teaching and having social rules for kids to overgeneralize emotional impact of slights, real and imagined, is recipe for mental health issues as adults. Yes. That is 100% correct. 100%.
That could help me make sense of how I was feeling and who I was becoming.
When I was teaching, I'm gay. And I was afraid to defend the kids that were getting picked on.
They all
because
knew.
I was afraid the kids would say, oh, you must be gay because you're defending those kids. And they would have been right. And I was scared because I wasn't sure if I was out, if I would get fired. It wasn't until my last year of teaching at age 55 that I had guts enough to come out, to my students.
They all knew.
And even my principal silenced me because she said, if you tell kids what gay means, you're talking about sex.
As a teacher, you're judged for so many things. And I think that for some reason, I think less of myself as a gay person than as a non-gay person. And so it's been overcoming my own homophobia personally. But I think that that's a big part of it for the queer people in the audience is, really pushing up on our own issues with ourselves.
Yes, you are pushing. This is exactly right. This woman is correct. She's pushing up on her own issues that she's then projecting onto her fucking students. Her issues have no place in a public school classroom. She needs to go deal with her issues in therapy. If she was comfortable with herself, she would have no need to project her own insecurities onto students that are compelled to be there by the state. George Andre Veloso Nunez says, I don't talk about my sex life with my students because I think it's inappropriate and most of my students are middle-aged. Yes. It is always inappropriate for a teacher to talk about their sex life with their students.
I think it's really great if the teachers aren't afraid to come out as LGBTQ, because then the students knew that there was somebody they could go to and they could be sure that person would be accepting and would help them out.
I am a subscriber to Go Big or Go Home. So I think that depending on the principal, how you are as a person, that if you're going to come out to your class, you should do it with some sort of big musical number.
This, trying to find other teachers who care about it too, and kind of maybe create some sort of coalition or people together. So,
Man. Ryan says kids should be allowed to file an EO complaint for sexual harassment if teachers discuss their sex life at school. Brian, I think that's actually a really great idea. I completely agree with you. Yeah, 100%. I'm on board with that. Great idea.
this is important.
We need to find someone to try that out. Some brave student that has been red pilled by their parents at some public school somewhere needs to try that out.
It impacts the life of our students, and we should have institutional support for this.
I think everyone can if they have someone or multiple
Tiki beer
teachers that they can go to and talk to about anything, it makes the school more enjoyable and a more safe place for the students. And
I'm going for pina colada beer.
Has to be committed to the programs to make sure that they work correctly.
So as many of you have started to correctly intuit, teachers, in fact, don't know everything or even very many things. And it's
Oh,
kind of
awesome.
alarming on a daily
Brian's going to
basis
ask his son to be our guinea pig.
incredibly large
Excellent,
number of
Brian.
things
Don't
that
traumatize him,
you
though.
don't know how
I know
to
you
do.
won't.
But I guess the commitment that I would hope to make to all of you and to all of my students, even if I didn't know, I'd find out.
Pina colada smoothie
But
beer.
huge thanks to Mrs. Johnson, who was the teacher I was talking about that pulled us.
That does look like a pina colada, a little bit.
That would pull us into like rooms and have these like lunchtime meetings with all these LGBT kids, and she was like the only one in our school that really cared about it. And
Yo, hang on,
made a huge
hang
positive
on.
impact on
I know he's saying something very emotional, and I'm sure it's probably very profound. This beer smells like straight pineapple. I can smell it from here. Straight pineapple. Let's see. Oh, good. Brian's son is 10. And so we're going to have him filing sexual harassment charges early on. Excellent. Nothing could go wrong with this plan. Guys, this tastes just like a pina colada, except it's sparkly because it's a beer. It has carbonation. This might be the very best. This might beat the cheesecake beer. Oh my God. This is delightful. Hang on. This is from Branch Blade Brewing in Keene, New Hampshire. It's a New Hampshire beer. And it tastes just like a fucking pina colada, except it's sparkly. This might be my new favorite beer. I'm not joking.
Meanwhile, there are students in our schools who are already doing this work, who are proud to be themselves, who are allies to their LGBTQ peers, who are demanding that there be a cultural shift so that they are recognized and welcomed in their schools. There are also students who are desperate for teachers to be their allies, to affirm who they are, to love them.
No. It is not the job of teachers to affirm a student's identity. I'm sorry. It is not the job of teachers to affirm. It is not the job of anyone to affirm anyone else's identity. This is part of the problem. When you're teaching kids from an early age that it is the job of every single person around them to affirm their identity, you are actively inhibiting them developing any personal resiliency and them developing any personal locus of control. So no, it is not the job of anyone to affirm anyone else's identity. It is your job to affirm your own identity and to be comfortable with who you are. That is what we should be teaching. And Brian says, pina colada is my national drink. I agree, Brian. Pina coladas are going to be the official drink of Actively Unwoke. This pina colada, anyway. Cheers, everyone. I need like a little umbrella or something. All right, moving on.
Maybe we're not talking about sex as a sexual acts, but how can we, as educators, acknowledge what we're teaching already has a heteronormative context? How can we kind of clear that context as educators in a way that is age appropriate?
I think that
Wait, did you guys hear how do we as teachers acknowledge what we're teaching has a heteronormative context, and how do we queer that context? You don't fucking queer the context. You don't. Why are you queering the context? That makes no sense. To what purpose?
Elementary should be a time when you jump in on it and
why
incorporate LGBT stuff.
And why, by the way, are you asking teenagers? Why are teachers asking teenagers to help them queer the context of what they're teaching in the classroom? Teachers should not be taking direction from teenagers. That's why they're the teachers and why the teenagers are the students.
Normalize it from the very beginning, because kids grow up in accepting environments and going to be more accepting adults. And transgender kids know that they they're transgender from like very young ages, and so it's good to get everyone educated from the very beginning.
Having an inclusive curriculum is a huge part of creating safe spaces.
You know, I don't remember anything ever coming up related to differences around gender or sexual orientation and the kinds of stories we read.
Sorry, I had to
or
blow
the
my
kinds
nose
of
again.
examples
Sorry.
that were used in terms of people. To me, I think that
You need
is
to be able to
huge
breathe.
because I think to have those examples makes a huge difference because people start to feel like I can relate to some of that character or that particular person, even if they don't necessarily say,
No, Josh,
you know,
they
I
don't.
relate to all of it,
No.
or that's who I am.
They don't teach it at
Throughout
all.
high school, I never once had a teacher talk about a queer icon in history, in literature, in anything. And I certainly didn't know that they could be happy or successful or contribute to our world. So I just kind of thought I was a freak.
Oh,
and
come
wasn't doing anything
on.
productive in
Hang
the
on.
universe.
You're telling me that a teenager in 2022 didn't realize that gay people could contribute to the world? I'm sorry. Again, I grew up in the 90s and I knew that gay people could contribute to the world. What is going on in 2022 where kids don't realize that gay people can contribute to the world? That makes no sense at all. That kid has literally never existed in a time where he was conscious of in which gay people were not fully like embraced by society for the most part. Bryson Gray aside. Man. Yes, you can get those in the Midwest. Listen, the Midwest has some okay beers. Okay, listen, you don't have as good a beer selection as New Hampshire. New Hampshire has really cultivated has really cultivated breweries through just having like really good business practices around that stuff. But the fact is, like, I've had good beers all over the place. There are craft beer stores everywhere. What you got to do is you got to find a good craft beer store. I guarantee you have them in the Midwest. You just have to go to the craft beer store, look around, try lots of stuff, find out what you like. But this stuff exists everywhere. It's not just in New Hampshire or California. It's in between as well. Okay, Texas, it kind of sucks. The beer scene in Texas is like not good at all. But you can absolutely find this stuff anywhere.
And that's really problematic, not only for me as a queer person, but also for my straight friend sitting next to me who's getting those same messages that queer people are not happy and they don't do anything productive in the world.
Well, who is giving them those messages that queer people aren't happy and aren't doing anything productive in the world? That's not that's coming from your fucking teachers, dude. That's coming from the left. That's not coming from anywhere else except the people that you're looking to for guidance.
Hear that Walt Whitman was gay too. They need to know that this poet that we all read was like me.
Approach these topics.
Wait, hang on. Like what is this guy's title? Hang on. What was this guy's title? Sean Connell, Gender Violence Prevention and Education Assistant. Holy shit. This guy is basically like a teacher's aide that is for some reason in charge of gender violence prevention. What gender violence is going on in the Denver uber liberal school district?
As like a facet of somebody's identity and not their entire identity, because I feel like a lot of times what happens is this like specialness thing where it's like, you know, here's all the history and then here's the gay history and then here's all the literature and then here's the gay literature.
Incorporating it into everyday usage will hopefully make people understand that this is just a normal part of life, that this is not some shut away part of society. This is people everywhere.
And the safest place I know of is not in the high school where I go, but in the middle school, the 7th grade LA teacher. She's different from other teachers. She's willing to talk about feeling safe and being herself, which she's like the only teacher I've ever really met who does that.
We have a club called Aqua. It's
So Brian is saying Dr. K had some cookie or brownie beer a while back. Yeah, that brownie beer is good. Looked back, but the brand would not ship out this way. I'll have to be more adventurous. So listen, I bet you I was drinking New Hampshire beers. Maybe you, Josh, maybe you should come on a whole. You know what we should do? I should talk to Dennis about this. We should do a whole beer tasting of New Hampshire tour. Actually, if you come to Pork Fest, there's actually a beer tasting event at Pork Fest where you have to like bring 6 craft beers in order to be admitted to the event, and then you get to try everyone else's craft beer. But my point is this, is that craft breweries exist everywhere. And so just because a brewery in New Hampshire is making brownie batter beer doesn't mean a brewery in the Midwest can't also make their version of a brownie batter beer. So you just have to go to the breweries, man. You got to go to the independent breweries, the craft beer stores. Usually independent breweries or like a really good like craft brew pub, they're going to have good food too. You just got to seek it out. And then just try a lot of stuff. Try everything. Get a lot of like taster, like get like a lot of like samplers where you get to try like 5 or 6 beers at once, and then you just get like a little glass of it and just try everything and just figure out what you like. But I guarantee you, no matter where you live in the country right now, you're going to be able to find amazing craft beer. I know this is not the topic of this video, but you know, I like to talk about beer. So it is what it is.
Be accepted for who you are. It's like home. It's peaceful, and you could be accepted for who you are, no matter what. Banned, nerd, whatever. We accept you.
All this comes down to is they're saying we just want friends, which is
Understanding
fine
the
and
complex
understandable.
social realities of
But
gender
everyone
and
can have
sexual
friends.
diversity is critical to preparing our teachers to support all students in their own classrooms. And we, as teacher education programs, as districts, as communities who care about our youth, need to be held accountable, and we need to support our teachers to do this work.
This is the boat to jump in, really, because you're laying the framework and you're building allies with tomorrow. Those are the kids that can go into these middle schools and high schools and actually really support, gender variant kids, queer kids, and just general kids that are being bullied. And I think, having community in elementary school is the easiest time to build it. It just gets harder from there.
We're sending messages to our students constantly. And what we say and what we don't say and what we do and what we don't do, they pick up on, they notice. So I would say, first of all, you have to be aware that students are watching you and listening to you, and then recognize that you have students in your class that are dealing with issues that society makes troubling for them.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. Just you have to put yourself out there even though it's scary, and then you'll find people who support you.
You might have to educate your principal, you might have to educate your teachers, but be fearless, because just like you said, like Elizabeth said, these are people's lives. They're their lives. And if that's not why you're a teacher, then don't be a teacher. It's kind of like you get fired, what a great thing to get fired.
Oh, good. The end. Excellent. Or just the beginning.
All right, y'all.
Oh, God. I almost forgot about them. They're back.
We are going to give you some time. We have a few questions for you to reflect upon.
Oh, good. More staring into the camera. Exactly what I wanted.
So, first of all, and Sarah will put the questions in the chat. What did you learn from listening to the voices in the film from students and from teachers? And then what curiosities or questions are you sitting with? And then how did this conversation land on you personally as an educator or youth serving
truer
adult?
words have never been
What
spoken.
feelings are you holding there?
Truer words have
So
never
we're gonna just
been
give you a few
spoken,
minutes
Brian.
to reflect on your own and then open up the space for a conversation.
We learned nothing.
Yeah, we'll give you just 3 minutes to kind of think about these questions.
Wait, what? Did they just turn off their camera? Did they literally just turn off their camera to give people time to think about the questions? Did that literally just happen? What the fuck is going on? All right, everyone. We are doing quiet contemplation of these questions by ourselves with no fucking facilitators at all. How do you all feel about the video that we just watched? How does everyone feel? Is everyone feeling supported and loved and connected? Does everyone feel like they have been validated as human beings? I'm going to facilitate this fucking workshop. If they're going to turn off their camera and completely abdicate their responsibility, I'm going to facilitate this workshop. Does everyone feel valued and cherished as human beings? Do all of the gay members of my chat feel like you have been acknowledged and loved? Or do you feel like I have been bullying you for the last 2 hours? I'm just letting this play. I want to see how long this camera stays off. Yeah, Josh, I gotta be honest, I was thinking the same thing. There's a reason they turned the fucking camera off. Sin, I can say you are valued and treasured and cherished. Yes. How long do we think it's gonna be before they're... Alex, I'm fucking acknowledging you, okay, Alex? Settle down. Oh, M169 feels violated. Okay, good. Good. Okay. Okay. Well, we'll have to do better next time, M169. Brent says, I channel my inner queerness and Jesus taught me I am loved, accepted, and how to suck a penis. Might have been the homeless guy out back instead of Jesus, though. Well, you know, Brent, use it diplomatically. Use the knowledge diplomatically and, you know, just be light on the teeth. That's what I've been told. Light on the teeth. I'm not saying you can't use them. I'm just saying you have to just, you know, be judicious when they come out. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. What the hell is going on? Why are their cameras off? Okay, George is feeling misrepresented. Okay. Okay. We'll have to do better next time. Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait. Oh, they're back. Okay, thank God. Oh, good. Okay.
All right. So let's talk to each other. If you are so called to turn on your voice or your camera or both.
Yes, let's have a conversation about whatever the fuck the two of you just did when you turned your camera off.
To the chat, I almost said. It's been a long day, and it's 2. Yeah, let's take a minute to read what's in the chat and then maybe open it up to talk with each other.
Yes, stunning and brave. Stunning and brave. Oh my God, why do they think this is good? They just they did, Steven. They just reaffirmed each other in their gayness. I bet that's true. Oh,
what?
A voice.
I was getting tired of the silence. I apologize, everyone.
Oh, we've got a bot.
I love it. Yeah, go.
I know some of the people, and I put this in the chat earlier when that first video played. I know some of the people have heard the story about my daughter. So I was very mindful, you know, having done this work or been involved in this work, I should say, both in the private sector and now in K-12 education. First time I took my daughter to Target. Some of you may be more familiar with it. It's called Target. But first time I took her to the toy aisle, she was 5 years old, and I walked her up and down the sides of it because being very mindful of, you know,
haven't had a bot
norms
in years. My God.
unintentionally put on young people. And I know John's heard the story. So we all know which toy aisles from that video market to girls and which toy aisles market to boys. So, you know, my daughter has been, you know, I hate to say a guinea pig for a lot of the equity and diversity work that I've done, but she's a trooper. So walked her up and down all the toy aisles, put her in the middle,
Brooklyn Way,
and then
good to see
allowed
ya.
her to choose. I allowed her to choose where she wanted to go. I presented all the options to her, allowed her to choose. She went straight for the Legos, went straight for the superheroes, just like that how that girl was talking to. And to this day, she's never owned a doll. But what's been really interesting, which I haven't shared, so those of you from NCW and stuff that have heard the story, what I haven't shared is that that was the easy part. The challenge was working with my mom and trying to convince my mom that my daughter would never own a doll. She's 15 now, never own a doll, never want to own a doll, a dollhouse. If anything, if anything, we have an Avengers campus on our in our house, and she's all about superheroes and different things like that. And my mom's like, why doesn't she want a dress or a tea party and stuff, like, or the pink colors or anything like that? And it's just, trying to make her understand. And obviously she's older, but and just awareness. So that the easy part was giving her the choice. The hard part was having everyone accept the choice that she made. So I just wanted to share that. So love that video, and hopefully we can get access to those videos or links to those videos sent out to us.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you bring that up, because this is, the problem with respect to LGBTQ people, and I think minoritized people in general, the problem has often been associated with the group of people, right? Like pathology, like the pathology of gender and sexual diversity, the pathology of, race and weight, like eugenics. And so I think flipping the conversation to say, why does this bother you, is very different from even engaging in the conversation of like, when is she going to do this? When is she going to do that? The question is, why are you uncomfortable? What's making you uncomfortable? Trying not to even engage, right?
Oh my God.
You care. So let's talk about you instead. Let's flip this conversation. Yeah. What else? I want to talk about the fear question. There is so much fear. And I asked, what do we do with that fear for ourselves? And also, what do we do with that fear when it comes?
All right, got a super chat. Hang on, from Sean H. Scripted validation is guaranteed to lead people developing inauthentic and fragile sense of self, self-fulfilling prophecy for identity instability. Sean, you're making some really great points today. You obviously understand psychology. I 100% believe you, or I agree with you. And I will say this, it's like, we really need to be teaching people from a very young age that they don't need validation from other people. The only person they need validation from is from themselves. Because a lot of the problems we're experiencing right now is everyone and their mother looking for validation from other people when you do not need validation from other people. You only need it from yourself. That's it. And I find that the minute that you give validation to yourself that you're looking for from others, you magically start getting that validation from other people. Isn't it funny how that works? Thank you for the super chat.
Comes up in other people who we're around. Let's talk about that for a minute. I can't find who was I talking to? Talk to me. Oh, I see.
They're like, no one else wants to talk to us. Please talk to us. Please validate our lived experience.
Just fear in general.
Please talk to us.
You might have Truck, who is currently as an attendee at the moment. But
oh, okay.
I don't know if wants to join. But I recently had a conversation with an educator in Florida who teaches at a private Catholic school. And we opened up our program to women, genderqueer, and non-binary students. And they had to end our participation in our program because she was getting pushback from her administration in her school. And she said to me, I'm not going to get fired over it. And I didn't have a great response. I was just, I was worried for her own ability to keep her job, to continue teaching. I know she was a great computer science educator. I can see that fear is really real right now, especially in these states, especially as we've seen this, unprecedented coordinated attack on trans, non-binary, and queer youth. One thing that stuck with me in the video was just, I don't know, when the teacher was, relating to his own experience and the fear that he had, students' response was, go big or go home. Like, what are you doing? Like, this is a moment to show up. There's Struck, go ahead. But yeah, that was a moment that, I don't know, struck with me. Definitely, I don't know, related to that fear.
Yeah. And I think it's important to recognize, someone in the vulnerabilities and strengths, I said, it's frustrating. Like it needs to move. We need to go faster. This is an emergency. And, I think many of us feel that way. And also we want teachers in the most toxic environments to want to do this work. And if that's the case, they're not going to be able to do the same things that teachers in progressive districts can do. It might be wearing like a rainbow button and that's it, and
that counts.
And it does count. Yeah.
We work with pre-service teachers and their teacher education programs at CU. And, we have been watching a video of a conversation that we had in the fall over and over and over again, because the fear of getting fired that our pre-service teachers are bringing is so present in the conversation. And it seems like, one of the things that we're trying to disrupt in their understanding is like, what counts as the work of, like, what counts as doing this work? Like, it's not, Bethy said in the conversation, like, it's not like you have to go into your school or your classroom with a fire hose and spray equity all around. It's not these like grand gestures. It can be, it can be go big or go home.
If you can spray equity,
if you can do it. We are all about it. But
wow.
It can also be these little moments that happen, like kind of in mundane interactions, the questions you ask. Can you wear a rainbow or hang a rainbow somewhere in your room? When can you grab an opportunity to tell a student, I see you and I believe you. I see who you are. And, I value you. That counts as the work. Those interactions and moments, I think, are just as meaningful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I just wanted to come back to, I guess, my statement on fear and what I picked up from the video. And Kiloha no, my name is Trek. I'm from the University of Hawaii.
University of Hawaii is in the house
today, so I didn't have my camera on. But I think what I'll say is, fear reared its ugly head in a really interesting way here, in that in our sports teams here at the university, for years we were called the Rainbow Warriors. Our football team, our basketball team, baseball, everyone was the Rainbow Warriors. And one day it changed to just the Warriors. And people were so upset because the whole state of Hawaii, maybe not every single person, but we all love rainbows. we very much identified with the rainbow. But I guess in the athletics department, a lot of our donors one day said the rainbows associate us with the gay community. And it says that we support the gay community. And so that's why we changed it to just warriors. And so the rainbow was taken out of all logos, all material, and the community went crazy. The community said, but we do. And what's wrong with that? And so now it's back. And it's wonderful. It's been back. It came back very quickly. It didn't linger for very long, but I think it was wonderful that our state happens to be a very progressive state. We have very open conversations, and I think it has a lot to do with the Pacific cultures. But I also know that we're a minority majority state. We have a lot of immigrant groups here, and so I think was it Susie who said she's given up on asking her mom to use they for her oldest kid. And there is a generational challenge within households and within families. And as I work with teachers, I also see a generational challenge in understanding that. So I think though there are fears, I also believe that there's a lot of grace to be offered to our older generation as they try
cultural
to
appropriation
and help us. I mean, because honestly, they want us all to succeed and they want to help us. But I shared my own little story, Sneha, while you're talking about your daughter, about my own dad. It was just my purple. I hate that purple dress. I remember it so vividly and so clearly, but it was a purple dress with pink elements and white ruffles, and he made me wear that to go to the park to play, even with hose. Nobody wears pantyhose in Hawaii, by the way. So he put me in hose, and he was so angry at my mother because she didn't raise me right to be a proper girl. And for me, and yeah. So I think of all of those things, but I did want to share that in Hawaii, we did have that moment with the rainbow and how that symbol became so much more for us in terms of embracing diversity and understanding that at least our educational system, we strive for it to be open to all. But fear, first, I think acknowledging it is the first step. Acknowledging that we all have a little bit. And one thing that one teacher said really struck me, which was that I was afraid I didn't have the right words and I would make things worse. That is common. I hear that a lot with our teachers here. And I'm wondering if others might have heard that too.
Yeah, we hear that all the time. And I think your point about grace is so important, especially right now in this like very polarized world that we're living in. And I feel like people
like this present no grace to people they disagree with.
We're like fighting about,
she's about not to present any grace.
Or like, at the beach, they have this like concerted effort. They're all, operating in the same playbook. And on the left, we're like using each other's language. We don't say.
Really? You think all people on the right are aligned? Can I bring you back to an hour ago where I just kicked someone out of my fucking chat who was acting like a raging homophobe because half the people on the right are acting like raging fucking homophobes and the other half of the people on the right refuse to speak up to the people on the right who are acting like raging fucking homophobes? These people literally think that the right is just, they've got it all together. My God, they're so unhinged from any sort of reality at all.
Say that anymore. We're focusing on these things that we're losing.
Cancel culture.
Yeah, the cancel culture, and there's not enough grace to be shared.
You guys are the ones fucking pushing cancel culture.
I want to make sure we get to some little things. Oh yeah. Thank you for sharing.
They're completely out of, and what this is reflective of is the fact, and I was actually thinking about this a lot over the weekend because, so I've now got my Twitter set up where I only look at Twitter based on lists. And what I've done is I've set my Twitter up so I have a list of like conservative influencers that I follow and just general people as well, not just influencers. I have a list of like libertarian people. I have a list of leftists. I have a list of like just news sources, like general content. And I got to tell you guys, we are literally living in different realities. The conservatives are living in a completely different fucking reality than the libertarians and a completely different fucking reality than the leftists. Everyone is living in different realities. And it's based entirely on who you are communicating with at any given time. But I challenge everyone to do this, everyone that's on Twitter anyway, and Twitter is a cesspool. Don't go on there if you don't have to. But set up different lists and just don't look at your main feed. Don't look at that shit at all. Just look at people by the list that they're in and look at what the different communities are talking about and what their perceptions are. Because they are three completely different worlds. Completely different perceptions of life, completely different perceptions of reality. It's actually kind of scary, to be honest.
So, what do we do about this? All the things that are happening. First, I think acknowledging that the things that that students were talking about in the film is like situated in the context of this, these systems of cis-normativity and heteronormativity. Do you want to briefly?
Yeah, so just really briefly, if you were in our first session, and I think we briefly touched on this at the beginning of this session, our favorite essential question is what counts as normal, because it is the first, asking that question of the, our communities and our context is the first step toward identifying what needs to be disrupted and how we can make our classrooms and schools more expansive, more affirming, and more humanizing. And so with respect to gender and sexuality, the normative systems at play in the, we call them cis heteronormativity, not just us, but, it's a term that that's pretty well known. But if you're to break it down, heteronormativity is a pervasive belief system that kind of presumes that what counts as normal in terms of sexuality is heterosexuality, and anything outside of that norm is weird, different, other. And cisnormativity is a companion belief system that also kind of presumes that cisgender people are what counts as normal. I identify as cisgender. That means I was assigned female at birth. I identify with that category. I've always felt like a woman. Those two things line up for me. And that gives me a lot of privilege in the world. And as Bethy said in the Riley slide, socially, we've done a pretty good job of conflating gender and sexuality. And so these systems are kind of mutually informing. They're really hard to disentangle, and that's why they're put together with a hyphen. But they're operating always and everywhere. You can see examples in the slide of what cis heteronormativity looks like. But as you leave this session and go back to, your families and your lives and your classrooms and your schools and your communities, start to think about, notice, where do I see these norms around gender and sexuality operating in my curriculum, in my language, even in like the physical structure of the school. We used to facilitate professional development in a middle school where the girls' bathroom was pink and the boys' bathroom was blue. So these norms are deeply embedded in schools, but it doesn't, once you have kind of your antenna up to noticing how they operate, they can be disrupted in very obvious ways, and then even in more subversive ways if you're navigating a more restrictive context.
All right. So some things that we always, like to leave educator sessions with, action steps that folks can take. And if you're not in the education world, you can practice these as well. So looking at that, the name tags, just making sure that students are always given the opportunity to name and identify themselves, and respecting that, how they want to be identified might change. So on the first day of class, always just asking students to introduce themselves. And this is, college level too, not calling roll, but instead having them give the names that they want to be called. There are plenty of ways to get at people's pronouns, depending on the age of students you work with. We always start sessions with saying our pronouns. We want to become the curriculum for students. So it's instead of like a kid in the class who has a pronoun that's not in the binary. And so we often say, you never know how somebody identifies until they tell you. And I want you to know that my pronouns are she, her, and hers. Some people don't know what pronouns are. They'll get it. Just give them some examples. The second, how we do gender, just getting rid of, separating or acknowledging people by their genders. So ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, not grouping students by gender, but finding different ways to acknowledge people. And this is a hard one. It's, we do these sessions all the time. And I always say, like, I don't identify as a woman. Like, the more I do this, I have no idea really what my gender identity is. And
wait. I just want to reflect on the fact for a second that this is a woman. Well, this is a person. I apologize if I've misfucking gendered. This is a person who literally takes the money, taxpayer money, from school districts to do training about gender identity. So she is taking the taxpayer money of at least one school district that we know of in Colorado to be an expert in gender identity. And she just said on this webinar, I don't even really know what my gender identity is. So they are literally paying for someone who doesn't even have a grasp of what their own gender identity is to teach other people about gender identity. Let's just all take a moment with that.
When we walk up and somebody's like, hey, ladies, I'm always like, yeah, like that just does not work for me. And it never fails at the end of the session when we're leaving, somebody will be like, bye ladies. I'm like, I just said that. So I know that these are really hard to kind of turn the tape back on, but just really trying to watch ourselves with our
Aren't her
language and how
pronouns
we address
she?
people. Making sure that wherever you are, wherever you work, there's access to all gender restrooms. And so even policies that are meant to support trans youth, like in Colorado, they're still very binary. And so what they say is like a trans girl can play on the girls sports team, or a trans boy can use the boys bathroom. But for those students who are non-binary or who don't identify in even a trans binary, there aren't many options for
Yeah,
for going
Brian
to the
said
bathroom
she
during
literally
the
said at
day.
the beginning
And
it
we
was
heard some
she,
really
her.
heartbreaking stories about
So,
students
what
just
the
not
fuck?
going. And so advocating for all gender restrooms, single stall restrooms, turning staff bathrooms. If you're in an organization and you have single stall bathrooms that are still labeled men and women, get rid of those. All gender, anybody can go. Hang a new sign. The keep calm, it says, and read the syllabus. Keep calm is a good idea too, but this also says read the syllabus. And that's just, if you're a teacher, just in the beginning of the year, kind of putting out there, what your class is going to be about, or if you're a school leader, at the school, we support all students. We acknowledge all students' identities, and that means that we're going to have conversations about race, about sexual orientation, and family diversity. And so just getting out in front of it so that when you do read a book about a trans kid, if there's pushback, it doesn't land on the trans kid who's in the classroom, which we see a lot. Having safe zone signs, being an obvious ally. I think someone earlier put in the chat, like, I want students to know that they can talk to me. Make your ally status visible. Hang signs. But one of the things that students say is, if teachers have a sign like this, or if you own an organization or you work in an organization and you have signs like this, make sure that you mean them. Make sure that this sign is a conversation that people who are working with you know what it means, and that you're committed to the action of what this means. And then last, just making sure that you're including LGBTQ people in the curriculum, and making sure that that we're including a diverse population of LGBTQ people. So not all queer people are white, not all gay people want to get married. So just making sure that the stories that we tell about LGBTQ people are diversify their actual experiences.
All right, so let's skip.
Yeah.
Let's skip that one. So we know that having access to at least one supportive adult at school, when queer youth have that, they report greater feelings of safety and belonging. And when that number of supportive adults increases 6 to 11, sorry, y'all.
The dog is straight.
To get in here.
The dog is
Things
straight
get
and feels
significantly better
misrepresented.
for queer youth. So as Becky just said, something that's important to challenge ourselves to do is to make our supportive adult status visible and explicit. And this is especially if you identify as an ally.
Oh, they've got the
We
new
recognize
trans
that this
flag
can
in
be
there.
more
How nice.
vulnerable and heavy if you are part of the community. So these are just ways, even in the most restrictive context, that you can show your supportive adult status. So add your pronouns to your email signatures, to your Zoom name. You can always introduce yourself with your pronouns. Hang rainbows wherever you can. Share your learning with your students.
Spray
Address your
equity.
mistakes. Spray equity. Address your mistakes when you make them. June is Pride Month, so go find an LGBTQ event in your community and show up.
We're actually leaving town. We're also a couple. It's a total queer endeavor over here.
Duh.
And we're leaving town tomorrow. So grandma's here to drop off her dog. So thank you for just riding this train with us. It's like Zoom land has changed all the rules. But anyhow, keep in touch with us, queerendeavor.org. Do something, play offense, do some little things. And reach out.
Yeah, it does now have a
We're
circle that is
around.
like eating the trans
know
stuff,
that,
isn't it?
John,
Oh
I
no,
think
it's
you're
the circle
gonna-
in the. I don't even fucking
Yes,
know.
I'm just
Whatever.
gonna thank you
It's
so much for
constantly
just
an
inspiring
moment of
and very
update.
meaningful and
Thank you,
impactful
Brian, for that.
presentation for the one this morning. If you didn't catch it, you can check it on our NCWIT YouTube channel, which we streamed all of our NCWIT Summit sessions on there. And do not forget, this is very important, to order your NCWIT swag box. It
Ooh.
comes with some amazing.
Don't
things,
forget
including
to give
featuring
us money for
NCWIT's
useless
Rethink magazine
swag.
and some
How
other great
dare
items.
you not
Behind
order
me, my
a
cat
swag
is
box?
on one of them, which is
What
our
the fuck was
Sit With Me
this?
seat cushion to help. Sometimes you need to take a seat in order
cushion?
to take a stand. One of our campaigns that we have here.
A
So make
seat
sure that you
cushion.
order that.
You
and
want
get
to
some
sell
other
me a
great
fucking seat
NCWIT swag
cushion.
items. And please join us tomorrow for a
Okay.
celebration with the winner of the 2022 Pioneer in Tech Award, Poppy Northcutt. You can register now at ncwit.org/summit. It'll be introduced by one of my favorite people, TJ Aladdin. And also remember to save the date for our next conversation for change, which is on August 24th, 2022 at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time.
Maybe
Dr.
we'll
Maya Israel
maybe we'll do a
will
spy
focus on her
stream.
research strategies for supporting academically diverse learners.
Who wants to
meaningful
do a
engagement
spy
in CS
stream on August
education.
24th?
And finally, please take a moment to complete our survey by following the link that will appear on the screen. We really appreciate every single response. We read every single response and really appreciate you taking the time to provide feedback. The survey link will also be sent out in a follow-up email in case you miss it. And thanks again. We really appreciate everyone's participation, vulnerability, and joining today's call. So thank you so much to our speakers and Queer Endeavor and all that you do across this country for queer youth
All right.
educators.
Well, I think that's the end for what we have today. That was an interesting adventure, wasn't it? You know, anytime there are kids involved, I'm just not really the biggest fan. I think it's grossly irresponsible of adults to use children to advance a political agenda. Especially when those kids are just figuring out who they are and figuring out how they want to show up in the world. And again, I don't care if they're gay or trans or non-binary or Zims or Zers or whatever the fucks. I don't really care. But it is painful to me to watch adults use children to their own purposes and to teach those kids that the world is always going to look down on them and they're in an unsafe place because of who they are and who they choose to love. And I absolutely believe that anytime we hear language coming like that from children, that is something that adults have taught them for their own political gain. And that's really sad to me. But guys, that is oh, Alex says I want to see Karlyn in a struggle session live on air. I mean, who knows, Alex? Maybe it'll happen someday. But guys, that is all we have for today's happy hour. As a reminder, we do happy hours on Fridays at 5 p.m. every Friday, unless I'm, gallivanting around in Reno or something. Usually you can check in on that and make sure that we're doing it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Make sure you mount that like button on your way out the door. I know this stuff is hard to watch, but you're not liking the content that we're watching. You're liking the fact that we are showing daylight on the crazy shit that these people are doing. Guys, I will be back on Sunday on my main channel, youtube.com/Dr. Karlyn Borysenko. You can find a link to that in the description below. We will be going live at 5 p.m. to have a talk to do FW News. We haven't done FW News in like a couple weeks now, so I'm really excited about that. I may also be doing another stream about, well, other business that's going on. There might be a late night stream coming tomorrow night. Not a sassy Saturday. That's going to be different. We're going to see how the day goes. But I might have some more content coming soon. Please make sure you follow my Twitter. Please make sure you join my locals community. Bing! Join it for free. And that way you'll be caught up on any news and announcements. And of course, tomorrow, if you have not yet joined book club, we have a special 3-part book club for my new book, Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against the woke insanity in your life. The way you join book club is number 1, you buy the book. You can buy it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. It is in hardcover and Kindle version. The audio version is coming soon. But if you have already purchased the book, what you can do is go to Unwoke events, and it will give you information, hopefully, if it loads, there it goes, about how to sign up for book club. And basically what you need to do is forward your receipt for the book to bookclub@activelyunwoke.com, and I am going to, within the next half an hour, be sending out an email invite with a Zoom link for a book club. This is a different Zoom link than we use for our community Zooms and locals. It's going to be completely different, okay? So you got to pay attention. But if you forward your receipt to bookclub@activelyunwoke.com, you will be receiving an email invitation out to our Zoom book club that will be happening tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Time to discuss the first section of the book, which is all about decoding the woke and the rules for fighting the rules for the actively unwoke, fighting back against this woke insanity in our lives. There are 11 of them. There's a whole chapter about it. I think it's pretty great, but I'm looking forward to connecting with you guys tomorrow to talk about it more. All right, guys, that's all I have for right now. Take care, and we'll see you soon.